What's up, Caleb?
Mr.
Welcome back.
Raul Mendoza, brother. I've been looking forward to this.
Me too, man. The last time we got together, it was great, man. The podcast did really good, so I wanted to run this back. You have a lot of interesting topics that you cover on your own content, so I'd love to cover some of that here on the podcast today and kind of just fill in with you and see what's new, what new things you've come up with from the city, and just take it from there, man.
Yeah, and I'd love to be covered. But before we get there, brother, first of all, dude, congratulations. Your new place, it is amazing.
Thanks,
you
man.
totally deserve it. I've been seeing you hustle your way through this, and now it's paying off.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's been one of the biggest challenges that I've taken on in my life. And, when we first moved in here, as I told you, I thought there's been a lot of lessons that I've learned in the last 6 months. And, hopefully one day I'll be able to share that with other people. But yeah, just moving in is big responsibility. Bills, Forex, things Forex. It's been a big challenge, but I wanted to create a space that we can bring in creators and we can, have some really good podcast episodes, have, a space for people to shoot video content, just work with the best creators in town. And
El Paso's got all the talent. Let me ask you something, brother.
Yeah.
Your success.
Yeah.
How much did having systems play into it? Yeah. And how did you go about getting these systems into your everyday business?
Absolutely, man. I mean, systems is everything that is key to running something and to growing something out of my garage into doing this. It's all about routines. So my routines have been key. Sticking with things for 14 years. People see this like it's overnight, but it was really something that I've had to build. Sleepless nights, early mornings, and having a routine was key to that. Having some type of systems within the company, obviously, as well too, but personal systems within myself.
So I get that personal systems, and you start growing, but I feel like most entrepreneurs in the beginning, they're doing what they're doing out of passion. They're doing what they're doing, how they know how to do it. But it always gets to that point where you kind of start to get stagnant. There is no more growth, and you have to go out and find a model to use, or implement systems into your business.
Yeah.
How did you get those systems?
Yeah, man. I think it just starts with passion.
Yeah.
Because I think that's going to be the fire that's going to get you through the nights when, things are no longer interesting, or you worked 16-hour days for 2 weeks or a month, and you're still in the negative, and you're like, how can this be?
Yeah.
Right? And you're still like trying to put things together. So I think it takes that grit when you're at those times at your darkest, that you have to go back to the basics and find yourself and find what you really love to take it to the next level, man. But honestly, it's just been an obsession. You have to be almost crazy and obsessed on what you're doing. It's a project that I've worked on day and night. My life is surrounded around this business and making this happen. And those that know me closely know, you can call me on a Friday night at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to be in front of my computer working. Yeah, it's been my nature. So I've learned, and I just have that mentality that if I love the things that I hate, you can't beat that person. So I learned to love a lot of things that most people would hate to do, which is, like we as creators, we want to be doing the cool stuff and doing this stuff, and the creation. When it gets to the accounting and submitting your taxes and doing bookkeeping and coaching staff members, and this is stuff that you don't like to do, right? And a lot of us sometimes shy away from the things that we don't want to do, right? So, but I look at it like we have to, these are the things I have to do the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
So I think if you have that mentality, you'll get there. So
you mentioned something. You said that in the darkest times, you have to go back to find what you love.
Yep.
What do you find when you're doing that?
What I find when I'm doing there, man, is a dark place, is the other side. It's part of what this whole thing is about, the EP and Los Monstruos. It's seeing the dark side of you and also embracing that. It's kind of like how Kobe had the Mamba mentality. You have to embrace the good with the bad. And it's easy, and sometimes it's just a light switch in your brain. You look at the bad and you focus on it, and it just brings you down, brother. But if you look at that bad stuff, you start you start finding happiness in the bad stuff and find good things in the bad stuff, then there is nothing that can break you, you know? Like there's been a lot in my journey that, you know, like people don't see that we're doing in all these videos and stuff like that. Like we've gone through really, really real problems. Personally, myself, my wife, like things like that, it's been really, really tough, man. But I think when you go through those dark places, they make you stronger, right? So I like to put myself in those situations, because those situations, when I see myself there, I smile.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost, you know, when I would roll and I do jujitsu, which you can, you know, whenever I get into a tight spot and I have somebody that's 300 pounds on top of me, they're sweating down on your face and you're just trying to get out. There's no way to get out.
Yeah.
I would smile during those moments, because I'm like, okay, this is what, you know, it's going to show me what I'm about.
Right.
Right. And then if you can just hold on just a little bit longer, then you find a way to get the knee in and get yourself out. Right. And I think that's most of the time when we see those hard times, it drops us.
Yeah.
And so the less time that you stay down,
Yeah.
I think the better that you are to come up. So I really try to focus on that. It's a practice that I practice on, is every time I fall, or I'm throwing what I call a pity party, you know, like you're throwing a pity party and you're getting on yourself, you just try to pull yourself out of that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I'm sitting here asking you business questions and you're responding with life philosophy.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a style that, a lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, and what you're saying about recognizing that monster,
Yeah.
that's very much Carl Jung in psychology. That's the integration of the self and being an integrated being. So, but again, very much proud of you, brother. Very much proud of the fact that you come from El Paso, and very much proud of seeing the way that you're approaching this. Again, I'm sitting here expecting you to tell me, oh, there's this template or there's this and that, and you respond with life philosophy.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, no, it's self-growth, and it's something that I practice all the time, and it's something I have to be practicing.
Yeah.
That's why I call it, you know, when most people say, I've got it all figured out, I've done this, but I'm constantly going back to the drawing board, trying to figure new ways out for us to take things to the next level, and or to myself. So it's always like a mixture of reading books on just inner excellence, is what I'm reading right now. Things like that, like just finding things within and still asking questions even 14 years later. After I built this and I move in, you know, you ask yourself, what is this all about, and what am I trying to do? So I think that curiosity is another key, is that keeps us alive, man, because once you think you figured it out and you're high and mighty, bro, like the world comes.
That's the worst place you could be. Once you think you know something, that's when you know least.
So, yeah.
But you mentioned excellence. I'm very intrigued. I spent many years of my teenage phase talking about and learning about excellence. And I think this is one of those keys in life that really changes where your life goes.
Yeah.
When you do things in a spirit of excellence, you know, might sound a little corny here, but the Bible talks about, you know, when you do things, do them unto God. So when you have that mentality, regardless of what you think of God, but you're doing it for something higher than that ego-driven ambition, then everything blows up.
Bro, it's really something that's dear to my heart.
Yeah.
Like, it's a subject I can talk about all day, because it's probably what runs through my mind like 80% of my free time.
Yeah.
Because I know that the answer is within.
Yeah. Ooh.
You know, whether it's happiness, whether it's innovation, whether it's all within me, and I know that that I just have to find and tap into it. So I'm constantly experimenting with like breath work, like Wim Hof type breath work, holding my breath for long periods of time, and you know, I found different things that I would never probably think about.
Yeah.
But it's just quieting. It's the world is very, very busy and very noisy. And so you got to try to find that, you know, and I'm a person who's typically 100 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So people always tell me it's hard to get myself to that point. Like, how can I quiet my mind? And I say it's a practice. That's why you have to keep coming back to it and try to find yourself there, bro. And that's one of the things that I do, you know, like if you pass by my house, like at sundown or sun up, you may find me in the front yard, just sitting there on the grass, barefooted, just breathing, because I try to connect with the basic things, man. Like all of this stuff, the building, everything. It really, at the end of the day, it doesn't mean nothing to me personally, honestly, to tell you the truth, because more than what I'm trying to do as far as like my mission on what we're doing with the marketing company, my mission on being a father and trying to establish and set down a road for my family. But personally, I know that that's not going to find me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually one of the things that is new since the last time we had this podcast. Yeah. Meditation has come into my life and really changed things and changed the way I even look at and approach life. Yeah. So I definitely think that there is something to that, whether it's simple breath work or going further and trying to really go beyond the self. It really does transform you and gives you a different perspective in life. And you're right, society right now is 1,000 miles an hour, and it doesn't help. It especially doesn't help for us creatives.
Yeah, man. I see too many young people. I'm seeing, their anxiety levels are through the roof and stress levels are through the roof, man. And I look at it and I consider myself to be pretty strong-minded, strong-willed. So I can imagine somebody that's just getting started in this world, getting thrown into this world where everybody's judging you, feel like you're falling behind, things like that. So you got to really, really dig down to find yourself. And that's one of the things that, like I said, it's a practice for me, man. I've got to sit there and accept that everything is going to be gone and I'm okay. So, and then I start from there. And then I start, let me start manifesting things. Let me start really thinking about things that I want to do. Let me use affirmations. I really believe on connecting to higher powers, higher energies through affirmations, through what you tell yourself. So it's really interesting in that you bring this up and that we started the podcast like this, but because we went straight deep, bro. But right now I'm reading the book Inner Excellence, and I was telling this to my wife earlier on today. When I was growing up, I played baseball my whole life. I was very gifted. I had the ability to catch the ball every way, had no stress, no worry, where I would see more people really fall apart, like just in a situation where it was a championship game and you were up to hit and they would just fold under the pressure, and I never had that stress throughout my whole career, everything, man. And went on to play high school ball, was a star pitcher. I made all district, best batter of my team, everything. And come my junior, I'm playing outfield because I was a pitcher and I played outfield when I wasn't pitching. The ball started to move on me. Like there would be a pop fly come out, and one day it just started moving on me. It would like this way. Yeah. When it was coming at you. And I was like, what the hell? So I try again, and I help, looking back and reading the book Inner Excellence, he's talking about, because he was a baseball player as well, he's talking about Steve Sax, who was a great baseball player for the Yankees. I think he played for the Yankees. And Steve Sax, at one point, went through that. But what it was an inner anxiety that was being triggered. See, anxiety is a way that we tell ourselves there's danger in our body, kind of triggers that, right? And so he was using that as an example to say, well, what's happening is that you're associating every time I go to bat, anxiety is here. You get what I'm saying? And sometimes we program ourselves like that. So that's why I tell people, when I hear people say, oh, I'm this, I can't, or use words like that, I just bring it right back and I say, bro, like, don't tell that to yourself, because we believe these things and our subconscious will pick it up, so much. So it was one of those things that I kind of pieced together and went back to that. Like, maybe that was the reason why I got into it with my coach, and my coach said, you got to either work or play. And it was my easy out to say, okay, I guess I'm not going to play, and I quit my senior year, I went to go work. But looking back at it, it was probably it was the inner battles that I was having. And I bring that up now because when you talk about, what is it that, and I think I've been so, there's moments even lately that I've been at points where it's like, and I don't know how we're going to, like, I didn't get into this. Like, how did I get these extra expenses, and how is all this going to happen? And the market's starting to be uncertain. but I've been super happy and calm, bro. Like it's been just because I'm at a good place and I'm at peace with myself. So, but it's a practice that you have to do, and it's very interesting that you can associate and you tell yourself something, and your subconscious is programming to say, oh, it's time to turn on anxiety because it's fight or flight, you know, and that's, I think, what most people go through when they try to go after their goals, man. Like when I first moved in here, I almost felt myself like sabotaging myself.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever had that thing, but you get an opportunity and you're the one messing it up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nah, man, this isn't going to happen. This isn't going to happen. And that's that inner battle that I tell you that we've had, that I've had. And I know a lot of people go through it. We all do as humans, right? So, but yeah, man, that's the part of little by little. I don't have all the answers, but I hope one day that through everything I've gone through, I can share some of my experiences to help people. At least, you know, if you want to go after your dreams, you want to do this, you want to do that, here's what I learned, and you know, here's all the data that I picked up during that time. And
yeah, and I guess the bottom line of a philosophy of excellence is always doing your best. And so as long as you're doing that, I think the universe, life, God, whatever you want to call it, has a funny way of making things work out, you know?
It does.
And so I think the stress factor is just, it has no real value in our life. You know, the minute that we're comfortable with what we're doing, and if we could go to bed thinking I gave it all I had, then there's no reason why you'll fail.
Yeah. I think that's why, too, late at night before you go to bed, I think that's the best time to have your affirmations.
Yeah.
You know, best time for you to consume something that can help you reflect on the day. And I have found it helpful at that time. And it's funny because, once you start having these kind of thoughts or these affirmations, dude, like all of a sudden, like things start happening and things fall into place. And it was like, man, what was I stressing for?
Yeah.
Right. But it's funny, man. But yeah, no, I'm very blessed. I'm excited that we're in this building. It's a dream come true. Sometimes I think, who the hell owns this damn place and how did you even get here, bro? But I'm excited and I'm up for the challenge. And you know, I've heard so many stories, and I guess the other reason too is because I've heard so many successful people tell me I went bankrupt, I fell, I this, and the key thing about all of them is they get back up and they keep on moving forward, man. That's one thing that I have in my heart is I won't quit. I will not walk away from what I'm doing. I'll continue to do it, and we'll continue to figure out ways to do it. And today with AI, it's going to be very interesting, you know, as we go into the future. But I wanted to do something special, you know, where we can look back for our city, for creators, to give a space for us to come shoot video, to give people opportunities in the space and work and have some decent jobs. And, you know, I can say, looking back, I've done that for the last 14 years, but going forward, man, I'm still not satisfied, man. I'm satisfied as far as like I'm proud of myself and I'm proud of what we've accomplished here, but I'm not done. I feel like I still
best is yet to come.
The best is yet to come, man, and I still got more fight in me. I'm still, you know, you tell me what keeps you going. I keep putting myself in the fire. I think that's how we grow. I was hearing an interview on the School of Hard Knocks. He was interviewing a guy that had made a multi-million-dollar company. And one of the things that the guy kept on telling him was, I always just put myself in bad situations that I had to figure it out. It was either sink or swim.
Yeah.
And that's what's helped me get here. And when I look at this situation, I mean, don't get me wrong, like, there was times that I'm like, man, I should have just stayed comfortable where I was. Like, my rent was nice. I had disposable. Like, I'm good. And it's just like always, like you dip yourself more in the water and then you come back up and then the water comes back up. And, you know, it's that kind of back and forth, man. But it's been, I tell anybody that if you're going to go after your dreams, man, do it now. Go hard. Try to do your best. Sometimes timing is not right, but, you know, if you have the opportunity, take the jump, man, because you may never get it again.
Yeah, and you mentioned something that is actually very practical. The way that we reprogram ourselves is precisely by saying your manifestations or going over that right before we go to sleep. And
Yeah.
the reason for that is our cycles, in our brain cycles.
Yep.
So right before going to sleep, we enter that theta stage,
Yep.
and our mind is just so receptive at that
Yep.
point, which is also why breath work helps so much. It allows us to stay there.
Yep.
So you're able to, deposit these intentions there to the subconscious, and it'll receive them much better. So I think what you just said is one of those life hacks that people need to be aware of.
Yeah.
Most people are going to bed, and right before going to bed, they go over all the things that went wrong during the day.
Or you watch social media.
Or you watch social media, exactly.
Watching Fit Fam in the middle of the night,
So doing what you just stated, I think, is one of the best life hacks there is. Reprogram yourself so that when you wake up, you already have that drive.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I wanted to dive in and talk about a little bit about our city because, I think right now when people look at our content, you and I are both known for El Paso type content, right?
Yeah.
And we do El Paso. We love our city. We love the structures. We love the history. We love the people that have come through here, right? So, just in looking, and again, every time I come to your interview, I have to go back over all of your content, man, because there's so many cool videos that you've put out.
Thank you.
And and there's so many cool topics that, there's so many interesting. So this one's going to be a good episode, guys, because we're going to touch base on a lot of stories. I know you guys love stories. We're going to talk about haunted things. We're going to talk about tunnels. We're going to talk about spies. We're going to talk about aliens. and some. So this is going to be an interesting episode. But one of the videos that we did that was like the best one that performed really well, and I think people are very intrigued, or is the story about El Paso High.
Yeah.
And I asked you, is El Paso High haunted?
Well, you know what? The first time we had this, I said, I don't know. I don't believe in ghosts, but oh my God, I keep getting all these stories.
Yeah.
So let me tell you more stories I've heard.
Cool.
A buddy of mine, a close buddy of mine, Brother Mason, in fact, he went to El Paso High. He was sitting by the door, he tells me. These are metal doors, heavy doors.
Yeah.
Apparently, out of nowhere, the door just swung open. There is so many interesting things that happen in El Paso High that are just so hard to explain. I also heard of the basketball team being in practice and the gym doors flying open. They went and they put chairs in front of it, and they still did it again. So at this point, if ghosts are real, then they're definitely in El Paso High.
I mean, it was a morgue, right? So, and at one point was, where a place where there was a lot of suffering.
Yeah.
Right, with the Spanish flu, and God knows what else, right? I mean, there was obviously it has a lot of history. Most of this stuff, was it happening prior to 1920, or is this around that time that you start to see? Because was El Paso High always a school, or was it something else before a school?
It was always a school, but it was so big. It was kind of like the city venue for a long time.
Yeah.
And when they didn't have enough space in the hospitals, it was used as a overflow of bodies and so on. So it was always a school. Just the fact that it was so big is what it became multi-use.
Do you know when the Spanish flu happened that they shut down school, or what like?
No, that was early 1900s. But
Yeah.
What really is interesting, because the whole school Spanish flu morgue thing, that was in the basement, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about that the last time.
They had classes going on while
Yeah.
there was people studying upstairs while people were being hauled into the morgue.
Right, and the classroom is still there. Like, they still have that part of the school as it is. But the crazy part is that I've had a bunch of comments about people talking about the tunnels in El Paso High.
Oh, gotcha.
I wasn't aware that there was tunnels in El Paso High, but
Oh, really?
a El Paso Police
Wow.
Department officer who was the school officer said that definitely there's tunnels there, and that
Wow.
there's all kinds of noises that come out of
Wow.
there. And
Yeah.
so, go figure. I've never seen these. But that's the story.
I know, because you share a ton of pictures on your stuff. Have you ever seen pictures of tunnels there at El Paso?
Not those. But this same guy,
Yeah.
He's in the basement where the morgue was.
Yeah.
And the lights were off. He was with his partner. They're recording with their cell phone, and they hear a noise. When they hear this noise, the guy turns around really fast, and just for a split second, you see a young girl under a table wearing an all-white dress as if she was crawling on the floor.
Yeah.
And he kind of just spun around, and it was gone. But that in itself is a scary little moment.
What is it about these ghosts, man, that they always wear, especially the females, always wearing like a white gown?
Right.
What is that?
It probably has to do with the fact that that's our archetype of ghosts.
Really?
And so that's what we're seeing.
You know what? I never believed in that, but I had a personal experience that till this day, I'm like, that was a ghost, man. But I used to play, I told you I used to play baseball back in the day. And when I was 16, I got the opportunity to go to a Dodger game, right? And I went with the organizer of the league, and it was me and another kid and the organizer of the league. We went to downtown LA, right? We pull up to LA in a bus. We get off of the bus in LA, and the first experience I ever had of LA was we get off the bus and there's this guy, he's beating another guy with a 2x4.
Oh my God.
And it was just like two homeless guys, but he was beating the other guy with a 2x4. And I know Raul's laughing because I know he's probably seen some of this stuff where he was living over there. But the guy was beating him with a 2x4, right? So I'm like, all right, I guess. So we get on, and it was already late. We get off the bus and we head to downtown LA. If you guys have been to downtown LA, we jump in the bus, and we're in the bus, and it's late, and there's a guy, well, right beside the seat right behind me, there's two kids and a mom, right? And the little kid is asleep, and he's just got a bunch of drool, and there's a puddle of drool on the seat.
Oh, wow.
And then I look in the back of the bus, and there's this guy is like very overweight, big guy, and he's wearing girls' pantyhose, and he's wearing a high heel, and the high heel is kind of like broken, and it's kind of like over, and then across from me there was this guy just rocking back and forth saying, "I had a nice time with you, Knott's Berry Farm," over and over and over.
Like, sounds like LA.
Yeah, you can't make this up, right? And I was 16 years old, so this was my first intro to LA, right? So we drive and we come up to the hotel. And the hotel must have been, it was a rundown hotel. It was in downtown LA, and all the windows have cages on them. And we go into the hotel. There's a bunch of homeless people there in the lobby. So I'm like, what the hell, you know? So anyway, so we check in. We go up to the room, right? We go in all night, sirens, if you're in downtown LA, sirens all night, yelling, go to bed. And then the next morning I wake up, and the guy and the kid were gone. And I was like, what the hell? Like, everybody just left me here. And, you know, the guy left me a letter like, hey, we're at the McDonald's around the corner. Like, when you get up, just hit us up. I was like, all right, cool. So I get out, and I'm getting ready to get in the elevator, and I'm like, granted, these are like, it's like a 20-story building, right? So I get in, and I hit the elevator door and opened the door, and you wouldn't believe it, that there was a girl, an older lady, in a white dress, on the floor, laying down on the floor.
What?
Bro, I just went like this, and I backed up, and the door just like kind of closed, and I ran and I bulleted down the hallway, and I went down the stairs all the way down 20 floors. I was like, fuck this, I'm not. So
what happened with that?
So that was my first encounter with this lady, right? So then we go to the game, right? We come back, fall asleep. Next morning, same fucking routine. I do let the note there, right? And I'm just like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to get up. So this time I'm like, I'm going to go down the stairs today because I'm not going back if that lady's there, bro. That was pretty creepy. You can imagine, you go, it's dark, it's quiet, it's eerie. And there's a lady asleep on the floor, or thrown on the floor with her hair over her face. I didn't even see her face. So I'm walking down the hall, and it's a long hallway, so you can see down all the rooms, right? And it's dark. Even though it's light, because there's not a lot of light coming in through the hall. And I'm walking down the hall, and dude, lo and behold, at the end of that hall, fucking lady was standing there
What?
in the white thing, just standing there. Dude, I went to the elevator, went down, and I was like out. And the next day we were out, and as I thought back to it, I was like, dude, that was a ghost. Because to me at first I was like, maybe it was a homeless person that made its way up.
You didn't ask anyone?
Dude, I didn't ask anyone. I didn't say nothing to anybody to this day. But it's always the stories that I hear about ghosts. They're always wearing a white gown, right? Some type of gown or something.
Yeah. Well, I got one for you that wasn't a gown, and it's El Paso High. Group of friends. I was in this vehicle, and I don't know exactly what we saw or what happened, but we're driving around. Everybody's all rowdy. We're all kids. Paso High's haunted, so we're in the middle of the night. We go to a Paso High, and at the corner, we see a janitor standing at the corner with a mop. And everybody's like, well, that's strange, right?
At night?
At night.
Okay.
The car, we go around, it's a big block to go all the way around it. When we get to the other side, he was at the other corner. We got down, we went down the field, we were running around, everything. We go up to the kind of like the entrance to the building, and he was at the top. And at that point, we just bolted to the car and took off. I don't know what that was about. I can't say it was a ghost. I mean, maybe he sprinted from one to the other and was trying to scare us, but he definitely scared us.
Ghosts definitely have the power to spawn, bro. Somehow they spawn. It's like a Minecraft game, like, yeah, for some reason. And times like that, you look back and say, was that real? Or it was something that I saw, or what?
Yeah.
But yeah, there was no denying, man. Like, when you see it, and when I saw it, the lady was real. It was no halo around her.
Yeah.
There was nothing. It was just a lady thrown on the floor, So you look back and say, was that a ghost, or was that actually a real person that was just living in the halls and the elevator, Like,
yeah, it's definitely insane. And places like El Paso High that have seen so much. I mean, one of the coolest things that I've heard of is that General Pershing actually rode down that football field in celebration. So I mean, this is a place that has witnessed high intensity, high emotion on every spectrum of the emotional spectrum.
Yeah, it goes way back in the day. Do you think, and I wasn't gonna go there yet, but do you think maybe they had a KKK rally there?
I don't know. You know where the KKK rallies were for sure?
Where?
At Kern
the school
Place.
District?
Yeah, right. They definitely hung out there. They used to have their rallies and the initiations in the Arroyo at Kern Place.
Oh, wow.
And once they would go through the whole ceremony in the Arroyo, they would march their way up to Scenic Drive, and they would burn a cross up there.
Wow.
At one point, they initiated 300 members in one round.
Yeah.
That's pretty insane. And the last time we spoke, you asked me, how did the KKK get to El Paso?
Yeah. So how did the KKK get to El Paso?
I know this now. The KKK got to El Paso because this is the second time the KKK reemerges.
Yeah.
And the first time it comes to El Paso. This is during the Mexican Revolution, and a lot of Mexican nationals were migrating and coming to live to El Paso. So the Catholic culture was rising. Now, Catholics have a system that allows them to organize.
Yeah.
And so they were really good about having print newspapers and magazines. Jesuits were really good about having schools.
Yeah.
And the fear was that Catholics and Mexicans were going to take over. And so the Protestants ended up bringing C.C. Kellogg, who was the recruiter to the KKK, and started the Frontier Chapter number 100. So it was actually, and it was a magazine that they had. So it was actually the Protestant churches, I want to say Presbyterian, but I'm not quite sure, that were basically Catholics against Protestants And it was
Wow.
basically a way to go against Mexicans.
Wow. C.C. Kellogg, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like a great name for a grand wizard.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And it's crazy to think some of the personalities that did get to be members. I mean, some of these guys turned out to be, looking back, honorable men.
Yeah.
So the fact that the KKK got to El Paso through the Protestant church gave them a really good front.
You think maybe it was established more not on to be racist against other races, but to more it was like a nationalist, like do what you have to do to maintain your country type?
It was both. It was definitely both. I mean, these guys were racist. There's no denying that. But they were nationalists. The thing is that their rhetoric.
Not CC.
Right? Good old Kellogg. Yeah. The rhetoric was always disguised with biblical words. It was always, Christian speak, Protestant speak.
Yeah.
So a lot of people bought into it. I mean, you had people that, Tom Lee?
Yeah.
Tom Lee.
From like the park, Tom Lee Park. He was
Yeah.
named after him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his son was a famous painter.
Oh, okay.
So Tom Lee became a KKK member, and he really thought this is a Christian values thing. And as soon as he kind of figured out where it was going, he got out and actively worked to take them down. But I think that's what made them so strong. We had 75,000-ish people, population in El Paso. They had 3,500 members. That's like 4.5, almost 5% of the population.
It's a good size group.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
it all has to do with the fact that it was being sold as Christian values.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that maybe a lot of these people got sucked into it because it was more like this is for the church,
Yeah,
type
yeah.
deal,
That's exactly what it was.
And then you get there and you're like, hold on, what kind of party did I show up to, right?
Did you just call them dirty Mexicans? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that the Catholic Church had a grip on education in El Paso for
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that that's the reason they were hanging out at the school board. So-
Yeah, that's why I mentioned that. And it's mind-blowing to think that our school district were run. So basically, they were educating the masses
Yeah.
with that kind of philosophy, that kind of thought, or, a lot of the rules that were implemented. I know early on there was paddling, there was, all this kind of stuff. It kind of makes me feel was that part of that,
Well, they used to have what was called the Americanization clubs. So the whole idea was to Americanize you and to have you more nationalism.
Yeah.
So yeah, without a doubt, they did try to get to the young minds. Fortunately, it didn't last very long, and their influence was not very strong.
Yeah.
It was less than a decade that it really existed here.
It's crazy, though, that a lot of it still, there's remnants of it. A lot of people don't know that the school districts, the schools, a lot, like Bowie, right? Like
Yeah.
Austin, like Crockett, were all named
Yeah.
because they had that foundation.
Yeah, and there's other remnants too, like the train station on
Yeah.
the second floor. If you go to the restrooms, you could faintly see an outline in the bathroom door
Yeah.
that says whites only.
Yeah.
And then we had stuff like Douglas School, which was just for blacks.
Yeah.
So there's definitely still stuff that is seen. And El Paso, we predominantly Hispanic, but it's been run by non-Hispanics.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting to know. And I think there was also an election, right? I think it was Preston Gardner, that ran for mayor, and then lost by like 2,000 votes against Dudley, right?
Yeah.
But what would our city have looked like, or if he would have?
Exactly. And Dudley is one of those personalities that we owe a lot to, and he should be revered and looked up to. Dudley was an El Pasoan, but by the time he did that, he wasn't in El Paso. He was actually in Austin, and he had just been reelected for another term in Austin. The guy had his life set. He really did not have a need to come deal with problems in El Paso. And it's so common to see politicians now to be career politicians.
Yeah.
And they leave their city and forget about their city.
Yeah.
This guy did the opposite. He gave up the position in Austin to come run for mayor,
Wow.
to get rid of the KKK specifically, just so that El Paso was without this maleficent group.
Wow.
So he was a stand-up guy.
And I know Jim Paul, who still lives today, owned Dudley Field. How did that Dudley Field get the name Dudley Field? Was it Jim Paul who named it Dudley? Because he was the originator, I think, of Dudley Field, and has a ton of memorabilia. I know we did an interview at his house, and it was really, really interesting because he has a ton of memorabilia of El Paso.
Diablos and stuff.
Diablos, yeah.
I'm not sure if that's why. I'm pretty sure he's the one that named them. But I know the Dudleys are still around in El Paso.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Shout out.
Yeah.
And
Good
one of
people.
one of the videos that I saw that I was really interested in, you had done a video about the first Christian church at 500 North Oregon, right?
Yeah.
The reason I was very intrigued by that is because at one point I had a studio there at 500 North Oregon.
Oh, wow.
That was our old office there with Morris Piddle and Two-Tone Creativity. I was the audio engineer there. I would stay and record music at night. And I was always very intrigued of why it had those high dome ceilings.
Yeah.
And when I saw your video, I'm like, that makes sense,
makes
man.
all the sense,
That
yeah.
was a church.
Yeah.
Used to be a church, man. So now I understand. And at night when you're there at the place, you feel kind of different vibes, because I would be there late at night, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning by myself.
Yeah.
You know, and I would stand out on the balcony. It has a little balcony to the stairway, the emergency stairway back there. And never thought that. You know, I just thought somebody built this cool, like, dome shape. But it makes sense now that it was the first.
Yeah, and that congregation was admirable. I mean, they started out kind of like the Segundo Barrio Central area.
Yeah.
And they were small congregation. And within the first decade of their existence, they grew enough to buy that building.
Wow.
Yeah, so these were not the Protestants that brought the KKK. These were other Protestants.
Okay.
But just down the street on that on Franklin is the Gardner Hotel.
Yeah.
From that same Gardner
Yeah.
that ran for mayor. And
Wow.
one of the cool things is he built it. He was originally trying to make a 5-story building. It ended up being 3 stories. It's a beautiful building. It's the oldest continuously operating hotel in El Paso.
Wow.
It was built in 1922. Some of the stuff in there is so cool. You're walking through history. Have you ever walked downtown sidewalks and you see that there's like glass panels?
Yeah.
And
I saw your video. I thought it was so interesting.
isn't it?
Can you explain that a little bit? Why do we have glass panel on the concrete in
Embedded
downtown?
on the sidewalks.
Why do we have that?
These were the way that they would light up the basements before electricity, and even during electricity, but electricity was so expensive. For example, the Gardner Hotel, it
Yeah.
had electricity from the get-go, but
Yeah.
it also had those to light up the basement. So downstairs by the laundry room
Yeah.
and by their game room, you could see them. And these things were, the innovation of them was so cool. They started out being literally just regular glass panels in New York, Chicago. They would break, they'd be holes, people could see other people walking through.
Wow.
So it really took a lot of innovation and engineering to get
Wow.
something that wouldn't break and get it encased.
No, it's really cool seeing your video, and you actually go down there and you can see it from the top, and you walk past those things every day and you don't
Yeah.
think, what the hell are these random glass things like are on the floor?
Yeah.
And they're to let in light.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and so it's very innovative, and they probably had like mirrors, like bouncing the light off.
They
down.
used to have little prisms within them, and what was cool is that in big cities, the shops that were in the basements, their working hours were determined by when these things were feeding them light.
Yeah.
So it definitely affected commerce and allowed for more people to be able to afford a place to be able to have a business.
Yeah. That's crazy. I saw one of your videos. You said electricity first came to El Paso in 1882 or something like 1800, late 1800s.
Yeah, and in the corner of Mesa and what's that street? Oh, where the Popular used to be.
Okay.
That corner was the first light pole.
Oh, wow.
Street light pole. Yeah, and then the Wigwam Hotel, the Wigwam Bar.
Yeah.
Which is, you know that new parking lot where the roundabout is with the
Yes.
big door?
Yes.
Right next to the parking lot, there's the Wigwam. It's a museum now.
Okay.
That was the first saloon to have electric lamps.
Oh, wow.
And then over in Kern Place was the first electric house.
Wow.
You know, so a lot of, and the crazy part is that they had, what was it, tube and knob? Do you know what that is?
No, what is that?
The wiring was bare.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That was one of the things I was going to ask you about.
That's so
I found it very interesting that they used to run wire for the electricity without no housing or anything. So that's why you see a lot of, and I saw the interview with the owner of the Gardner Hotel. He was talking about that's why so many of the buildings downtown burn.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the electricity has no casing.
Yeah.
It's just the bare wire, right?
Yeah, and it's running on wood. So the minute you overheat that, you're
Wow.
going to get a fire.
And El Paso heat for sure.
So the corner, the bunker building, is it bunker? It's with a B. It's what used to be the old CVS.
Okay. Yeah.
Back in the day, that was the confectionery and elite confectionery.
Yeah.
Pancho Villa used to go there to drink strawberry shakes. He didn't drink alcohol.
Yeah.
In fact, the last picture of him and Orozco together was taken there.
Yeah.
Well, before that building was made, the original bunker building burned down. It was actually the first big fire El Paso had.
Wow.
And in the aftermath, one of the firefighters was standing by the side wall, and the mayor at the time was across the street passing, and he saw that the wall was starting to collapse. So he runs across the street to tell the firefighter, but didn't make it out on time.
Oh, shit.
So both the mayor and the firefighter died, and that was the first firefighter to die in the call of duty.
Wow.
And because of that fire, we started a fire department.
Wow.
So, but it was all because of this.
This electricity
Yeah.
that was going up around town. Yeah, man, that's interesting. When I saw that video, that's what called my attention a lot. I was like, man, that makes sense now, but it's crazy that, yeah, at first they probably say, let's just run wire and you know, people.
Yeah, and another cool
fires.
thing of the Gardner Hotel was that Dillinger stayed there.
Yeah, that's one of my questions I was going to ask you. I know Dillinger stayed at the Gardner Hotel. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I know he went under an alias, but what was he doing in El Paso?
Just passing by, he was on his way to Arizona. He was on his way to get killed in Arizona
Yeah.
2 weeks before that. But he stayed there with his guys, top left corner, second floor. The very corner is where his room was. And apparently all law enforcement was aware of this.
Yeah.
But nobody did anything because back in the day, if you committed a crime in another state, it didn't affect you. And so they were waiting for him to do something, but he didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So a few days later, he got out, rode away.
I can only imagine. I mean, Dillinger was famous because he was like he was a thief, right?
A bank robber.
He was a bank robber, right? So I can only imagine somebody like that, he'd probably go city to city,
Yeah.
robbing. I mean, I'm sure he probably did some dirt here.
Well, when he was in a hotel in Arizona, the hotel caught on fire. And the reason he got busted was because the bags they were carrying out were really heavy. So that they were carrying around their loot.
Wow.
Yeah, it's.
Were they traveling by train or by car?
I don't know. Probably by horse.
Really?
Yeah.
By horse.
Yeah.
All right. Damn, that's crazy. That's a long ride.
Yeah, I'm sure they got there by train. Right across the street of where the Gardner Hotel was is where the train was.
Oh, okay.
Another cool story.
The Gardner.
Well, not from the Gardner, a block down.
Yeah.
The other side of the rail train tracks. So across from the Indigo Hotel and in front of the new City Hall,
Yeah.
there's a parking lot there now. That used to be a hotel. It was one of the earliest hotels, and anybody who was anybody used to stay there. It actually was at the outskirts of town, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah. One of the crazy stories that comes out of there was that there was a self-proclaimed king
Yes, I love this story. I was gonna actually talk because I went down a rabbit hole last night about this.
Tell me, what did you find?
So the guy's name is James Hardin Hickey, right?
Yeah.
And James Hardin Hickey, from what I got from him, he traveled a lot, right? His family, he went to like Paris. He went in through, I think he went to go get married in Paris, right?
Yeah.
And on one of these expeditions, he's going by this island, which turns out to be Trinidad, right?
Yeah.
And he claimed it as his own, right? So he claims that I'm the king of this, which I don't know what you do. You're like, okay, let me take pictures of this. I'm going to take it back here. I'm the king of this now. I don't know how that works, but yeah, he made his own crown too, right?
Yeah.
It was a self-made crown, homemade crown, and goes, after going to Trinidad and claiming this, then starts having trouble with the government, right?
Yeah.
To coming to take, and he tries to submit paperwork in the U.S. saying, hey, this is mine.
Yeah.
He even goes as far as selling property that he had in Mexico, right? Which I'm curious if, like, was it in Juarez or what? Probably, right? Because he ended up here. I think that was what he was doing here, right? He was like, so the guy goes on this trip. They tell him that, you can't, we're going to take this back. And I think he started plotting a war, right?
Yeah, he was going to go up against Brazil.
He was going to go up again. He was going to plot a war. And then the guy falls into a depression, right?
Yeah.
And in this depression, he starts studying the art of offing yourself. I don't want to say, because I don't want it to ruin this podcast, but he starts studying this art, right? And comes to El Paso, takes a bunch of morphine, and the rest is history. He, in his belongings, I think they found his crown, right? They found
A letter to his wife.
a letter to his wife.
Now, the guy obviously already had some issues with this depression thing and that art, because he actually wrote a whole book about it. And
Yeah, he was an author, right? So,
yeah. And the whole book is advocating for how okay it is to do this.
yeah.
So that was the other thing they found in the bed: the crown, the book, and a letter to his wife.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, it's insane. So I know for people that don't know, El Paso did have a king, right?
Yeah.
So he was it, right?
He was it. He was it.
He was a self-proclaimed king, and a lot of you that don't know, when you hear that story, what, El Paso had a king? He was a self-proclaimed king, but he was here in El Paso.
And it's quasi legit because, I mean,
Yeah, at that
Brazil,
time.
at the time, Brazil was just claiming Trinidad as well. So, he, a little bit more power, he might have pulled it off.
Did he go over there and actually live there for some time, or he just passed through and say, I'm claiming this?
No, he actually built stuff out there.
Yeah.
And what happened was he married, and I've been trying to think of who it was, but he married into royalty.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of gave
Wasn't
him.
his family already some type of royalty as well?
I don't think so. No, his new wife, his second wife.
Yeah, because at that time, think of it. What makes you go to that thing that I'm like, I'm gonna claim I'm the king, man?
Yeah.
Like who has those kind of thoughts? You think, what was this, early 1900s?
Early 1900s,
Yeah.
and it wasn't that long prior to that Spain was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
Spain was one of them too that came in and said, hey, we're going to take it, right?
Yeah.
So it was just, it's a very interesting story of the self-proclaimed king from El Paso, or not from El Paso, that died in El Paso.
in El Paso.
Yeah. So, and I went down a rabbit hole last night looking at Wikipedia and reading about it, and I thought it was a very interesting story. It should be a movie.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think his book is still out there available.
Yeah. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you, and I think a lot of El Pasoans would want to know the history of, because everybody has different stories, but how did El Paso get the name El Chuko? And where does the name come from? Because there's different stories that I've heard, but I want to hear your take on it and what you've heard.
I think the most legit reason is tied into Pachuco, and the Pachuco culture being from Juarez. That being said, the more popular one is the shoe company.
Yeah.
And then everybody coming from Juarez saying we're going to go to the Chuko.
Yeah.
You know, so one of the two.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I heard, is that there was a big sign.
Yeah.
And that was up for many years, right? It was a huge company that a lot of people worked at, and it said Shoe Co.
Yeah.
Right? Like shoe and then CO. And a lot of people, when they referred to coming to El Paso, they said, voy pa Chuco.
Chuko, yeah.
Yeah, because of the Shoe Co., you know?
Yeah.
And I probably think that that's probably more along the lines true, man, just because of how shit happens and really just knowing our culture.
Exactly. It's more like us. There is a documentary out of Albuquerque that's being made, should be out next year. A great filmmaker. But his whole pitch is that it's tied into the Pachuco culture.
Yeah.
That being said, it's very likely the shoe coat thing. Do you know where the word, when Mexicans say, hey, que machín? Do you know where that comes from?
No, no.
So back in the Revolutionary War, they had the Brownie machine guns.
Oh, okay.
That said Brownie machine. So now every time they say, que machín, it's an expression of like, you're badass.
Yeah.
It's referring to the machine gun.
Yeah, I can see our culture coming up with shit like that because we just come up with the funniest stuff. Like,
Well, the other one is in Spanish, when you don't know something, it's very common to say sepa.
yeah.
And that has to
Ya
do...
sepa, okay.
Yeah, je ne sais pas. That has to do when the French were ruling there, they would tell them, I don't know. So now it's sepa.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. That's a really interesting story. Do you know where the origins of the word Pachuco come from?
No. Do you?
No, I don't. That's why I asked, because I thought it was like, who came up with that word? And
Well, it comes from Juarez, and it has to do with like Tintan and the whole Mexican tradition, but I don't know exactly where.
yeah, it'd be a good one. If you guys know, drop that comment. We'd love to hear some stories of how the word Pachuco came about. But there you go. What Raul's giving me something. Go ahead, just tell me. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we will talk a little bit about Gravity Hill. What do you know about Gravity Hill?
The story I've heard was that it was a bus of kids that got hit and went over the hill. The ghost of the kids now pushed the cars over, trying to get them to go over the hill. So in high school, in our wild nights, we used to go out there in the middle of the night, park the car, turn off the lights, and put baby powder in the hood of the car to see if we could see the little handprints.
So did you do this personally?
Oh yeah, all the time. Would we ever see handprints?
I'm not gonna lie, I've done it too.
Of course, everybody has to. Yeah, obviously it's probably something to do with physics, but the story has to do with a bus of kids that died out there.
Yeah, that's a good, interesting story. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you was, and one of the things that I'm really curious about is, why was Scenic Drive created? Like, I was thinking, like, why did somebody go and carve a road up that hill when you can just go through the bottom, right? So my thought is, or let me ask you that question. Why did Scenic Drive get created? Do you know?
Well, I mean, before Scenic Drive, there was Stormville. Did you ever hear of Stormville?
No. What is that?
So back in the day, the river used to flood downtown, and they would ruin all the little adobe houses. So what we know now as Chihuahuita, those houses would get washed out. And we had a really bad flood at some point, and all those people had to move up the hill.
Yeah.
And so there was a gentleman, I don't remember his first name, his last name was Storm, and he made Stormville, which was supposed to be affordable housing for the Mexicans from Chihuahuita.
Okay.
And so there was a whole Mexican community in what is now Crazy Cat, Current Place.
Yeah.
It was called Stormville. It was condemned. It was really dirty. There was feces everywhere. There used to...
affordable housing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly. So there was one bathroom for every 7 people or something like that.
Yeah.
It was just a bad situation. The city condemned them. He promised to clean it up. 6 years later, it was the same thing. So that's how that all got wiped out and eventually grew out to be the Scenic Drive. But literally, as you're going up, what is it, Rim Road?
Yeah, because it's a tough road to carve out up there. And well, my thought was like, maybe as because a lot of the time, a lot of doctors, wealthier people have houses up there. I thought, well, maybe through the money somehow they
Yeah.
said, hey, I want a road going that way, and maybe
It's always the money.
Yeah.
Well, what we have there now was definitely the money. I mean, after Stormville, that whole neighborhood was built to
Yeah.
show the best of the best of the best.
Yeah.
In fact, UTEP's president's house, Thompson.
Yeah.
His house was one of the first ones, and it used to stand out. It was
Yeah.
huge mansion out in the hill. But let's also keep in mind that there was a military outpost up there for the
Yeah, because you got the police academy training center up there, right? Heading up there.
heading up there.
But still, it just didn't make sense to me. Like, why carve a road off on the very rim of the mountain?
Well, there's what do you call those not hot air balloons, but the blimps.
Yeah.
So there's an outpost up there that was meant to guide the Fort Bliss blimps. So they were already making their way up there.
Yeah.
There's pictures of the wreck, the plane that hit the side of the wall of the mountain.
I didn't hear about that. Can you share?
Yeah, so there was a really bad storm, and a B-22 bomber was coming back to refuel,
Yeah.
and didn't see the mountain, and he slammed into Crazy Cat, and the engine is still there. All the plane parts are still there.
Wow.
And there's pictures of the storm 10 minutes before the plane crashed. They were taken from downtown. And in that picture, you could see already like some houses, and you could see some development.
Up there.
Yeah, like
Wow.
the nice development.
You know when it was developed, the Scenic Drive?
No, exactly, but this had to have been 30s, 40s.
Wow. So it's been around for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Must have been a dangerous build too. I mean, it's
Well,
up there.
and again, I think it was one of those where they just went over where people have already been walking through.
Yeah.
I think it was already a natural trail that they just paved over.
Yeah.
But that whole neighborhood is so intriguing, man. There's so many cool little houses in
Yeah.
Current Place.
No, I love these kind of conversations. We can go down a rabbit hole because there's so many interesting stories about our city. One of the most interesting ones watching your video was, did you know that El Paso had a Statue of Liberty?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Right where Pioneer Plaza is.
Yeah.
We were very nationalist at the time, and
Yeah.
everybody came out. There was flags all over the buildings, all over downtown.
Yeah.
It was only about 17 feet tall, but a renowned architect built the base, and eventually it was donated to the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts used to use it as a display for relics, war relics, and so on. There was a windstorm, again, windstorms in El Paso. It broke one of the arms, and the businessmen in the area already kind of had been talking about getting rid of it. So after the arm was broken, it was considered to be moved up to Scenic Drive, in fact.
Yeah.
But it was just beyond repair, so they tore it down.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. Who would have known El Paso had its own Statue of Liberty?
Yeah.
Was it a replica of the Statue of Liberty?
Yeah, 17 feet tall.
Exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
Wow. I wonder if it actually lit up.
I don't know this. But that's the arm that broke.
Wow, that's crazy. One of the other stories that's very interesting, and my mom gave me this one because she's worked at the Plaza for many years, but I wanted to ask you, is the Plaza Theater haunted?
Haunted? Yeah. There's definitely a lot of stories on
That's
that
one
one.
of the ones, right?
Yeah, everything from performers to little girls to
Yeah.
ladies, ghost ladies. I mean, I've heard all kinds
You've
of
heard
stories.
those stories, yeah. So it is true, and you kind of feel it when you go in there. It has this vibe in there. I know, Raul, I know you worked out there. Have you felt it?
Yeah, especially when you go downstairs to the restroom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So he's saying downstairs in the restroom,
Yeah.
and from what I understand, it also has tunnels under there, right?
That whole area has tunnels. Yeah, There is people estimate that there's about 900 miles of tunnels between Sunset Heights and downtown.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, and it's interesting to know what were the tunnels for, right? I know I asked you last time, why do we have all these tunnels, right? In El Paso. I know, and I told you that my grandfather's house, he built a basement, and then he started digging even further.
Yeah.
It was like this hole that just went in the, I don't know what it was for, but it was there. It didn't look very safe, but why did a lot of the, in your mind, I mean, after doing all your research, why was there a lot of tunnels here in El Paso?
We have the situation with the Chinese hiding out. We have the situation with them having opium dens, Pancho Villa hiding gold, and then the speakeasies.
Yeah.
So, do you know where Continental Dry Goods, the building Continental
Yes,
Dry Goods
yes.
was? That used to be a morgue, but it was also a speakeasy.
Yeah.
And so just like 2 years ago, they were rebuilding and they found a false wall.
Yeah.
And in between them, they found all the bottles from the back in the day.
Wow.
So yeah, that.
So it was like to hide bottles from the prohibition.
Yeah, exactly.
And stuff. And,
Yeah.
and then you had like these Chinese laborers and stuff. And that's very intriguing to me. Like, how did so many Chinese people get here to El Paso through these Chinese labor? How was it? Was it slavery? How did somebody go to China and say, "Hey, man, I've got a ticket for you on a trip"?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, kinda. Yeah, we hired them to build the railroad, and so yeah, we kinda did bring them over and say, "Hey, we got jobs for you," and they started building all the way from California. And by the time they went,
Oh, so they probably started somewhere and ended up here.
yeah,
Just through the flow of the railroad.
of the railroad, and by the time they got to like the Sierra Blanca juncture where East met the West on the railroad,
Yeah.
then there was the law that came about,
Yeah.
where they restricted immigration or emigration of Chinese.
Wow.
So you were kind of stuck here, and
Yeah.
you couldn't really.
And so they're here, and then they start having these dens, these opium dens. You start having just people hiding.
It was the opium dens obviously had the illegal. They
Yeah.
were hiding because it was illegal, but yeah, there was Chinese families that were legit just hiding from being deported.
Wow.
And
That's crazy, man.
And I have heard stories of tunnels going between Juarez and El Paso,
Yeah.
and Chinese
Yeah.
using them to commute.
Yeah.
I don't know this for sure.
It's just back in the day, like you said, with all the caliche, and
Yeah,
how the hell are you going to do that? But you've seen like modern day tunnels, and where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Yeah, I mean, we just found one not long ago, right?
Yeah.
Right out here at the side of the border highway.
Yeah. Do they know, like, when they go into those tunnels, do they date it? Do they know how long it's been around? Just to kind of get some understanding, or
No, bro, and actually, that's part of the reason why it's so hard to even know what they were for, because some of these tunnels
Yeah.
look like they were natural.
yeah,
So they might not even be tunnels, to be honest,
Yeah.
some of them. Then you have others where they're obviously bricked in.
yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. Tunnels are crazy, but I think they've become part of like our culture, just living on the border, like just you see these sophisticated tunnels today. I'm sure there's tons of them now, but I look back in the house, like I know in my grandfather's time, you had people were really scared about nuclear war.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of people started having basements, and a lot of the houses in Central have basements because there was a lot of just like having a fire alarm, right? Or fire drill, right?
Yeah.
They would have these drills for nuclear war where people would go down into the basements, right? To cover up, and they would show people how to cover up and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I just did a video of a popular news anchor in town, his home. He called me out. He's like, "Bro, you got to come check this out." He's out there by UTEP. And off the side of his house, there was literally this little bunker.
Wow.
Nobody knew what it was for.
Yeah.
It was likely.
I saw that video. It was a good video.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
probably a bomb bunker.
Yeah, bomb bunker, right? What it was. Yeah, I know that was why my grandfather's house had a basement. because of that, because of the war. It was a real thing, man. It was
Yeah.
what they were living in, and people were really scared about that.
How much can a bunker protect you?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like I hear and I see the drills they used to do for the Cold War.
Yeah.
And schools, and they used to tell them, just kneel behind the desk. I mean, how much can that really protect you?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, obviously, some people do it, right?
Mhm.
And I know that it was effective during Vietnam, right? That people were underground. They had tunnels and stuff like that. So
Yeah, but they weren't having nuclear bombs above them.
yeah, it'd be interesting to understand a little bit more about the impact, like that a nuclear bomb would have. Like, would it also impact underground?
Yeah.
How
and-
does it have the ability to radiate?
And how long do you stay down there?
Yeah,
You know, after the blast, I'm sure it lingers.
yeah. I mean, it's been around, right? Because if you look back at the Nazi war, a lot of the Jewish people hung out in basements. So yeah, obviously there was something about basements that people thought it would keep you safe, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's interesting question. Interesting question to go over. Other El Paso history that people don't know, or another story that was very interesting that stood out to me that you had talked about was the story about Cormac McCarthy.
Yeah.
And he wrote the book. What was this book? No Country for Old Men, right?
Yeah, and he wrote it at the Gardner Hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he wrote it there.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
lived there.
So my question to you was, do you think that was actually like maybe a real story? Living on the border, you know, people, obviously I had a Vietnam veteran as a neighbor.
So he says, he's been asked this before, and there's interviews of him, and he says, no, but it definitely had lots of real stories within it.
Wow.
And in fact, when he talks about the hotels, he's specifically talking about the Gardner.
Yeah. Yeah, Cormac McCarthy was a Pulitzer winner right from that book. He got an award, would you say world renowned?
World renowned, yeah.
World renowned author that lived here in El Paso, hung out a lot at Luby's, right?
Yeah.
Apparently. And so did I with my grandma back in the day.
Yeah, well, he lived out in Current Place after being at the Gardner.
Yeah. And I was very interested to ask you, like, do you think that was a real story, man? Because I think that's a great plot, you know. For those of you that don't know, the plot of the movie is basically a Vietnam veteran stumbles upon a briefcase full of money, right? And the whole story is about this hitman that's trying to track down the money, a police officer that's trying to make sense of it all, and the rest you can read yourself, right?
Well, like I said, he himself said that it wasn't, but that a lot of the side stories within the story were inspired by true events.
Wow, yeah, that's an interesting stuff, and good to know that he's probably the most famous author here in El Paso, right?
Yeah.
Do you know his story or how he got to El Paso?
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. I heard of him from the owner of the Gardner Hotel.
Yeah. Another question I have for you is, you guys recently moved into or had some kind of stay at the Cortez building, right?
Yeah, I just got an office at the Cortez.
Yeah, how's that, man?
Dude, I love it. It is a beautiful building,
Yeah,
and
it
I am
is.
staying at
What floor are you guys?
fourth floor.
Oh, okay.
So half of my office was where Kennedy stayed.
That was one of the things I was going to ask you. So I understand that John F. Kennedy was stayed there at the Cortez the day before he got murdered in Dallas, right?
A couple of weeks before, yeah.
Couple weeks.
And apparently had an amazing experience. There's pictures of him in the front lobby. There's a letter that he wrote to the Cortez thanking them. So, yeah, apparently he had a great stay here.
What was he doing here in El Paso? Was it just
I think he
Just a
gave
visit?
he gave a speech.
Yeah.
Not sure if it was at the airport or where it was, but there's a
Okay.
speech he gave here.
It's crazy that presidents don't hang out in El Paso anymore, right?
Yeah.
They just come in, touch down, and they're gone, right?
Well, they kind of had to back in the day because you had to go through here to get anywhere else.
Yeah.
Now you just fly directly.
But it's interesting that he would come here to El Paso. You know, that's why I was very interested. But I know that he was beloved by a lot of people in El Paso at that time, right?
Yeah, I mean, we wonder what we would look like if that hadn't happened. I mean, he was definitely a different breed of president.
Yeah. So now that you've been there at the Cortez, I'm sure you've been there late. Is the Cortez building
Is the
haunted?
Cortez haunted? And I saw Shelly talk about the fourth floor, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm in the fourth floor.
You're like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
I'm there.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm there really late sometimes,
Yeah.
like past midnight, and at least 3 times. And I have coworkers that
Yeah.
it happens to all of us. At least 3 times a week, somebody is gonna open the door and wonder why there's nobody there. I mean, you could hear somebody knocking. You could hear somebody shake because we keep the door locked.
Yeah.
You could hear somebody like trying to open the door, and I'll go and open thinking it's a client or something, and there's nobody there. I've heard it at late at night. All kinds at all hours.
There's something about those old buildings, man, that it has. I mean, Cortez. When do you know the history of it and when it was?
Oh, bro.
I'm sure you know.
Love the history of that building.
I'm sure you know the history, but
Well, the coolest thing about that place is that that's actually the location to the very first photography studio in El Paso.
oh wow,
So that was actually a photographer who made enough money in photography to build 2 extra rooms to rent out, and that grew later to be a hotel.
Wow.
They sold it. It became the Ornoff. It went through different phases. Busman, I think, was the Husman Hotel, and then there was a competition to rename it, and that's when a lady won and named it the Cortez.
wow,
So yeah, the coolest thing about that place is the photography.
yeah.
That was the El Paso's first photographer.
Was it always? Did it start off? You said they started off obviously as one place, and then with 2 extra rooms.
Yeah,
Did
it was
later
just a
on
little
it got,
corner.
it got built up?
Yeah, the first big hotel was only 3 stories.
Oh, okay.
And
Because it recently went through some renovation too, right?
in the 80s, they redid it, and this building was made in the 50s, 60s. But it was a 3-story original, 3-story building.
Yeah. And that wasn't the Pattersons, right? That owned that? 'Cause I
No,
know-
across the street was their Patterson's photography studio. So next door to what is now the Park Tavern restaurant,
Okay.
that was the Patterson's. No, I'm lying. Where the International Bar is now,
Yeah.
that's where the Patterson's photography studio was.
Gotcha.
And that was an interesting story. I mean,
Yeah.
before all
I was going to ask you that. I know this is probably one of the biggest mysteries in El Paso to ever happen, but did the aliens abduct the Pattersons?
Probably, yes. We don't know. We don't know what happened to them. So he had that photography studio,
Yeah.
and he stocked it up. And he bought all his new film and paper and everything he needed. He had a girl. He was married, but he had a girlfriend in Juarez. I mean, everything in his life looked like it was normal. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden, their cat is found wandering around Kern Place. They used to live on Piedmont.
Okay.
And they were boating enthusiasts. So they had a boat, and somebody says that the propeller of the boat had blood on it.
Yeah.
Somebody else said that they saw his business partner grabbing bloody sheets and putting them in the car.
Wow.
His competition, the other photography studio in town, produced a letter saying that they had left him all the inventory of the company.
Oh, okay.
Which obviously somebody else.
That's weird.
It was a weird situation. Nobody really knows what happened.
Raul Hernandez has left me all his equipment.
Yeah, exactly. That was one of those. And so
That's crazy.
the story says that
That's suspect right there.
well, either one of them did the other one off, or it was reopened in the 90s, and the sheriff at the time decided that the biggest likelihood of it was that they were Russian spies. So a catty corner to them lived a doctor. Mm-hmm. And that doctor later said that he often saw them taking pictures of the trains when they had the military gear on them, and that they often saw them with pictures of Fort Bliss.
Okay.
So that leads them to believe that they probably just got called back and had to leave. He used to tell his girlfriend in Juarez that someday he would just have to get up and leave. So the likelihood of them being spies is pretty high.
They were Russian descent, or
No, but that's what the sheriff said that they were working for.
wow.
They were Americans. His dad came into town when they first disappeared and said that it wasn't weird for his son to disappear. And then years later, he came back and said, okay, now it's weird.
So he was raised in El Paso?
No. They moved into El Paso as adults, already
Okay.
married.
Okay.
And they started the photography business, and they were thriving. They were prominent people in town. But the weird part was that,
One day he just disappears.
yeah,
Him and his wife.
both of them,
Never to be found again, never to be seen.
never to be seen. All their photography, personal cameras were in the house. Their car was at the house. Their boat was at the house. It's as if they just got up and left.
Because this case was very interesting. I mean, so much that I know Judge Samaniego got involved,
Yeah.
right, and reopened the case years later.
Yeah. He's the
Noth-
one that said that they were the Russian spies.
Yeah, but nothing was ever found.
No evidence of anything other than a bunch of people.
The FBI
saying-
got involved as well on this case.
FBI, the Juarez
Yeah.
investigators. There's several agencies that got involved. In fact, I think even the California investigators got involved because they had experience with cold cases.
Wow.
So to this day, it's still a mystery.
And so their house got turned over back to the state or the
To
city.
the city.
And then the city auctioned it off.
Exactly.
Somebody else now lives there.
Yeah.
And I know because you mentioned, like, hey, guys, don't be showing up to their house. 'cause
Yeah.
people live there.
Well, people live there, and what happens is that it's a sweet old lady that gets harassed. And so, out of respect, is that I ask people not to show up.
Yeah.
That being said, prior to the old lady being there back in the 90s, somebody showing up to see this house and the one next to it is like a thing in El Paso. Well, back in the 90s, somebody started shooting at the people showing up to see the house.
Oh, they lived there and they would shoot at people.
That would just show up and
Oh,
and not the lady that lives there now. But yes, yeah. So
It'd be interesting to ask her, if she's seen anything, if,
she is so not wanting to talk to anybody
about it.
Yeah.
She just wants to live her life.
Mhm.
But very interesting story. I mean, what happened to the Pattersons? Who knows, man?
Yeah, I think it was the aliens. I really think it was the aliens.
Really? I mean, I asked this to the astronaut if he believes that there was aliens, and his answer was, we would be, he said that we'd be fools not to think that there's, looking out and you see all the stars, those are all planets, to think that there isn't some other type of life out there somewhere.
Yeah, I just hope we get to them first before they get to us.
Yeah. Or maybe we are already them.
Ooh,
Wow.
dun, dun, dun. That's yeah, from the future.
Yeah. The other one that I wanted to ask you about that I think is right there in that area, because you mentioned it, was the Witch's House of Piedmont, right?
Yeah, so 5 houses down to the left of the Pattersons is the witch's house. Now, this story I'm proud of.
See, something's going on in that area,
In Piedmont,
man.
right? And right between the two of them was my first investment.
Really?
Yeah, my first real estate investment. So this video I'm really proud of because this is legit the first time that anybody says what really was going on there.
Yeah.
There is a story of there being rituals in this house. There's stories of there being a temple, so on and so forth. So back in the 60s, there was some sort of cult in living in this house. The basement was their temple. When they moved out, a neighbor was the appraiser for the house when it was being sold.
Yeah.
And she saw the temple. And she said that there was a lot of solar kind of like iconography. And somebody said that they used to go out because they're literally on the mountain. Their property is on the mountain.
Wow.
So their backyard is the mountain. And people used to say that they used to see them outside doing solar rituals. So the story has always been that there was a witch there, that there was all these kinds of rituals. People always show up, yada, yada, yada. The truth is, it was an I Am Sanctuary. The I Am Sanctuary by Guy Ballard. They talk about, looking within. You said, I find the answers within.
Yeah.
He's kind of the first one to start talking that stuff. And so the I Am Sanctuaries is where you go and you have all these metaphysical and meditation practices. And it's actually a really hippie-ish, kind of cool movement. Very metaphysical. Christianity has been completely ingrained in this kind of thinking without them even knowing it. But that's what was going on. It was an I Am Sanctuary that was active up until the 70s, and what people saw were the rituals to the I Am, and they do look very solar. So have you heard of Saint Germain?
No.
This is a rabbit hole. Saint Germain is a guy that never died, supposedly.
Yeah.
He was an initiate. People always saw him at the age of 40. He knew every language, played every instrument out there. People never saw him eat. So whatever it is that Saint Germain was back hundreds of years ago, in the 60s, Guy Ballard had some sort of mystical experience with him over in, is it Mount Shasta or Mount Rainier? Yeah, Mount Shasta. Mm-hmm. And from that experience, he brought all these teachings. So he was giving the teachings of Saint Germain. And that's where the I Am movement. So essentially what they're teaching you is look for God within you.
Yeah.
And the community of Mount Shasta has now been basically overrun by them. So as of today, if you go to that little town, it's all I Am movement people.
Really?
Yeah. It's a very wealthy and influential cult.
Wow.
And when I say cult, I don't mean anything bad. I don't mean anything bad. It just means they're small. But that's what they are. And what they have going on is kind of cool.
Yeah. And so who came up with the name The Witches?
I think
Piedmont House.
I think that was just a rumor of the fact that they saw them doing rituals.
Yeah.
I mean, you see somebody doing rituals, you don't understand it, it's satanic.
Yeah, no, pues aquí mucha gente, las brujas.
See? So that's what it was. I went into that basement. The basement is creepy, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. So you actually got to go into the house.
Yeah, it's in the video. Yeah.
And who owns it now?
It's for sale. That's why I got to go in. It was open. Yeah.
I want to buy this place.
It was being renovated, and the garage was open. The basement was open. So I was like,
wow.
Hey, it was meant to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so this place, how long did this place exist?
It couldn't have been more than a decade and a half. It was from the 60s to 70s.
Oh, okay,
so
gotcha.
Mid 60s to
yeah.
mid-70s.
So it probably was like a hippie hangout.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it was like a hippie new ager, because the real hippies of El Paso were hanging out at sunset.
Yeah.
That was that's. I think they still are, to be honest. I think they're still.
They never left.
They never left.
Compas are still there.
For sure. But these were like the new agey guys.
Yeah.
And again, the I Am movement is pretty cool. If you get into those teachings, you will learn how to manifest better, how to think about life better.
Yeah.
The fact that they're a little kooky and have weird rituals is just a sideshow, I guess, but their teachings are pretty good.
Yeah. And so these people were part of that I Am movement.
Yeah. And so they're not called I Am anymore. Now it's called the Saint Germain Foundation.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Wow.
but they had sanctuaries.
Interesting. I can just picture these people doing these rituals on the mountain, on the side of the mountain.
Yeah, picture lots of purple and whites and very kind of like angelic looking robes and lots of like worshiping the sun.
Yeah, because if it was, people were calling them the witches, I mean, usually referred to female. So a lot of females, or it could male,
both.
It could be just anybody that.
Yeah, the I Am movement is for both.
Yeah.
and the rituals again.
And still this day is probably thought out as one of the spooky hotspots of El Paso.
Oh yeah,
What'd you say?
yeah, for sure.
A lot of ghost hunters.
Yeah.
Love to do videos on this place, and right.
Yeah, for sure. It's probably one of the ones that has, because it has some evidence of there actually being something weird going on there.
Yeah, and I know you said you went down to the basement.
Yeah.
You said you felt it. Wait, where's out of all these places that you've been to, man? Like you've done a lot of research. What's like the spookiest place, or the place that you went to, man, that I'm just like, this place just gave me a different vibe? What would you have to say, like, or if it's multiple places?
The place that is the creepiest, that had some actual very negative stuff going on, is where John Wesley Harding got killed, in the corner across the street from what used to be the Popular.
Okay.
There was actually a real satanic ritual with somebody being burned, the body being burned, and something along. It was they were homeless. Somebody converted him to Christianity, and then they took him down and actually did some pretty bad stuff. When I got to go to that place, it feels creepy, and I don't know if it's just the fact that I know what happened there, but
Yeah.
you could feel it as a lot heavier in there.
And it's the basement there in the front.
The basement, yeah. The firefighter found the body, and to this day, they talk about how that's one of the creepiest places.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
No.
And it's one of the most violent places too.
What did you feel when you went down there?
Like a heaviness in the chest, like a shortness of breath, like like when you want to talk and nothing comes out, it feels like it's an oppressing environment, and you feel like you just want to leave.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your hair stand up and give you like.
Yeah, it just gives you that sense of, I shouldn't be here.
Wow.
And so
And what is the place now today?
it's empty right now. It's abandoned, and it's probably still has a lot of stuff going on, because the windows are constantly being broken, and there's homeless living down there. So yeah, that's
It's just been always a rough corner since the beginning of time.
John Wesley Harding got killed there.
What was it before, or what?
A bar.
Oh, it was a bar.
It was the Acme Saloon.
Oh,
And so that's the big history there.
Yeah.
That's where our most famous gunslinger, got murdered there.
wow.
So
It's amazing.
yeah, that's a creepy place.
Yeah, I have to do a little bit more research on that and check that out. Did you do a video down there?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
Oh.
This is the first time I actually talk about what happened down there. It's not like it's news and it's very recent.
Yeah.
But I haven't wanted to actually talk about it.
And how did you get access to it? Were you going to buy it?
So hypothetically, if I was to have gone there, I would have felt like I shouldn't be there. So, yeah.
I'm like, wait, I'm putting two and two. Was he buying this place too?
Yeah.
Okay,
So in a hypothetical world, that's probably the creepy. I don't know.
I think a video down there would be.
Would be called the evidence, brother. That's what it would be.
Do you know who owns that now?
I don't.
Okay, it would be good to give us access to that place.
Yeah.
Don't nobody be going over there, right, man?
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't think it's safe. I don't. And that's probably why they wouldn't allow us. The last thing you want if you own a property is for those stories to be going around.
Absolutely, because then it's not going to sell. People are not going to move in.
There's a
But
stigma.
it's crazy that it's still. What's happening right now with downtown, man? Because I see a lot of abandoned buildings, man. I'm just like, what?
It's about to change. They just allowed, all the stuff in Duranguito they had kind of blocked out. They just allowed for the purchase of those, for the sale of those buildings. We're picking up again. I stay there pretty late at night, and past 8, 9 o'clock, it starts to, there's a buzz down
There's
there.
a move,
Yeah. Thursday through Sunday, you see people down there. So
Yeah.
so
There's
God
some
willing.
good food spots too in
There's
the
some
area.
great, yeah.
Great food spots in the area downtown. We were just at one. One of the questions I wanted to ask you: what do you know about Carmelita Torres? I know there was an incident, and there was, at some time back in the 1917, they would have these Bath riots. What do you know about that? Because a lot of people don't know, that people today cross every single day from Mexico to the U.S. A lot of people come to work, but back in those days, people were forced to bathe in chemicals that were flammable, that were toxic. What do you know about that?
Yeah, unfortunately, some of these same characters where we started out the conversation with,
Yeah.
with white robes and shit, they made it popular to believe that Mexicans were dirty,
Yeah.
and there was an outbreak of lice in El Paso, and so the popular belief was that it was Mexicans bringing the lice.
Oh, okay.
So just prior to that, just a few years prior to that, they had started asking for documentation. So before that, you crossed back and forth with no concerns.
Yeah.
But that was what triggered the baths, that they needed to be cleansed from any lice.
Yeah.
Then it started to get a little more stringent with tests. So the law literally said that no imbecile or ignorant people could be allowed into the U.S. So you needed to take a test to
Yeah.
prove that you weren't an imbecile.
Yeah.
And then if you pass the test, you go take a bath.
Yeah.
And so Carmelita Torres, being a 17-year-old young lady, tired of being harassed, she had enough of it, stood up and refused to take a bath. And within an afternoon, she had hundreds of people out there supporting her. So that's what started the Bath Riots.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen immediately, but soon after it started to fade away.
Yeah.
And then they moved from being everybody crossing to just being migrant workers.
And she was arrested that day, right?
Yeah.
That's what I read.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she became an icon.
Yeah. No, I see. Recently saw the show 1923, and I think this was going along just during that time, right? As people were coming into the country, you had to be checked. The doctor had to see you. You had to be, these baths. I think over here was a little bit brutal because they were spraying you with chemicals, and it was almost like a gas chamber type.
Well, that was for the migrant workers. For the baths were actual baths, which is horrible. Did you hear of the fire in the jail?
No.
So when you went into jail, you had to do the same thing. And there was over 10 people in a pool of this kerosene.
Yeah.
And somebody lit a cigarette,
Oh shit.
and all of them went up in flames.
Yeah, they were bathing people, but not in water. They were bathing them in kerosene, right?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And when that went away, migrant workers that came to work in the fields were being sprayed. And the building that was done in is still up in Socorro.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy to think that that was our history and where we came from. Not even 100 years ago, right?
Well, that ended up being the model to what the Nazis did. So I think it's called Cyclone B, the chemical. The gas chambers that the Jews were exterminated in, you will show up and you didn't know if it was going to be water or gas that came out of there. The guy that implemented that used El Paso as an example.
Wow.
And it was the same chemical but at a higher concentration.
Wow.
So what the Nazis did was literally inspired by El Paso racism.
Wow. That's crazy to think, man. And, terrible. And that was good that, people would stand up and say, no, we're not going to go through this. From what I understand, Carmelita disappeared too. Right after that, nobody.
Yeah, that was the end of that.
Yeah,
But
she was
what
probably.
she did
Yeah.
did trigger.
Is there any word like was she killed or what happened?
Nothing that is really known of, or that I know of.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Well, today there's a lot of things happening that are really weird in sci-fi, right? And the things that we don't think are real are actually
Yeah.
becoming real, right?
Every conspiracy out there.
is now real, right? Like one of the recent ones was the story of the dire wolf being brought back after 1,200 years. What do you think about that, man? That's like the people messing with genes.
Yeah.
Some people say they're playing God. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can't wait to go to Jurassic Park. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
I think people playing God is it's a natural progression of being human.
Yeah.
I think if we can, we should.
Yeah.
And so it's dangerous, and it opens the door to a lot of other things with AI coming on board, with transhumanism being a thing. But if we are able to take control of our own evolution,
Yeah.
maybe we should. I mean,
Who knows what's down that door, right?
yeah.
I was just thinking about it. It's crazy. It's very fascinating to know that you can bring back something that died.
Yeah.
They're cloning dogs. So if you have a beloved pet, and they're cloning them so that the dog can live,
Yeah.
have another life. And
That's wild.
And yeah, in some of those instances, they say that the dog goes back to sleep at the exact same places and,
Wow.
things like that. So
Wow.
what that's going to turn out to. But I don't know if you saw the picture of the woolly mammoth rat.
No.
So they took some DNA from a woolly mammoth
Yeah.
and they started experimenting on a rat.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the picture of it.
Wow,
But
no.
I'll show you a picture of it. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Well, I mean, I just saw you could order a CRISPR kit to do CRISPR at home. You could do your own gene splicing at home.
Wow. I mean, what is this? I mean, it starts to turn into,
Oh, wow.
you see?
That
So
is crazy.
they say that the woolly mammoth was this color.
Yeah.
And it had like a light blonde color to it. And you can see like the differences between the rats.
Yeah.
The thing that they were saying was that the bad part is they're cute, and a lot of people wanted to have, woolly mammoth. But what happens? Does it morph? Does it turn into something else? With the dire wolf, it's not hunting yet, right? So it's not actually doing what a wolf would normally do. But what happens if it
Yeah.
starts to morph and eat humans, or wolves, a rabbit would kill humans, but what happens in that case? They started talking about maybe bringing back the saber-toothed tiger and some of the cool ones, from back in the day. Or like you said, at one point, do they start bringing back Jurassic Park? And what does this start to look like? And then what does that look like when it gets into the hands of another country? And other countries start creating clones of themselves.
Super soldiers. I mean, as far as I've heard, I think other countries are probably more ahead of us in human cloning.
They're already
Yeah.
I know China is working on super soldiers right now, and there's other countries doing this, and they want to know what are the genes that make this person exceptional, tall, strong, have the will to push forward, right? And they're looking at the genome.
The big one that I heard was they're trying to make it so that you don't have to sleep.
Wow.
You could just go on.
Keep going. Yeah, I can see that being the evolution of the human going forward, that possibly, we waste, what is it, a third of our life asleep?
Yeah.
It's like a third, right? So, yeah, imagine you not sleeping, how much life more you would have. And,
Yeah.
you'd look
It's
crispy.
interesting. I mean, Plato said God experiences himself through us.
Yeah.
And I strongly believe this. I am a bit of a pantheist, so let's get that out there.
Yeah.
So I do believe that there is an essence of God within us.
Yeah.
And so our job is to magnify that, right? And so how do we relate to God?
Yeah.
We relate to God by his creation.
Yeah.
You know, we refer to him as creator. And if we were created in his image,
Yeah.
it tells us that we are creators. So what we ought to be doing here is creating.
Yeah.
And that's everything from artsy stuff to the most wild stuff. I think that if we have the capability to do it, it's because we should.
Yeah.
You know, whether we should be careful or not, or take proper precautions, so that's a different story.
Yeah.
But if we are able to get to the point where we could cure diseases, where we could elevate the standard of living, the quality of life of humans, why are we not doing that?
Yeah, no, I think we're getting to that point, and it's going to be an argument that you're going to have some people on this side and you're going to have some people on that side, right? That believe both ways. Obviously, there's good, there's bad with every good that comes around. But yeah, do we have the right to play God? Do we have the right to be manipulating life?
Well, that's the fundamental question. It's going to come down to what's your perception of what you understand to be God. Yeah. Is it outside of you? Is it something out there? Yeah. Then if it's something out there, then you should probably be scared. Yeah. You know, and you should probably stick to your lane.
Yeah.
But if it's something in here,
yeah,
then you better be godly.
Yeah.
You know, and I tend to believe that God is within us.
Yeah.
You know, so the way that you look at God and you relate to God is going to determine to what side of that field you are.
Yeah.
If you're going to live in fear, then you're not going to want to mess with anything.
Yeah.
You know, because you're going to believe it's not your right.
Yeah, it's almost like we're going to have robots and we're going to have animal robots.
Yeah.
Cyborgs.
Well, I was so...
And people robots.
I was it Fauci that was talking about how humans have now turned into hackable animals?
Yeah.
Because of the vaccine?
Yeah. I mean, in a way, too, like, you think, that's what he was saying because of the vaccine?
I'm pretty sure it was one of those guys. That's their quote.
Yeah.
People have now turned into hackable animals because they want to monitor under the skin.
Yeah.
So before they would monitor us, our habits, where we went, when we got up, what we did. Now they want to monitor our heart rate, our temperature, how we react.
Yeah.
So we became hackable.
Yeah, no, you think of something like COVID and you think, was this all like a designed...
Of course. Yes, 1,000%.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
I mean, you look at the...
Yeah, there was, on the Joe Rogan podcast I was looking at, that's what he was talking about, that there is proof that, you know, these things came about from, you know, from plan, just like what we're doing right now with the dire wolf. And
yeah. So there's ample proof. There's a whistleblower that straight up said that COVID was a depopulation tool.
Yeah.
But there was also so with the what is it, Hunan, or what's the Chinese city that it came out of, the lab? Wuhan. They were doing the compatibility so that it's able to survive within humans.
Yeah.
And then the person that is now the whistleblower, because they said that it was a leak.
Yeah.
And the whistleblower is saying that it was intentionally let out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting, man. We're going to be like Hulk and Spider-Man. And we're going to have Reta's going to be Wolverine. And yeah, it's going to be a bunch of crazy stuff, man. And there's nothing you can't tell me today that I don't think that there's a possibility of it happening, just because you're seeing all this stuff happening.
I mean, there are technologies there, and technology is blowing us away. Did you see the new quantum chip that Microsoft got out? It resolved the problem.
Yeah.
Did you see the explanation as to how it resolved that?
No.
By discovering parallel universes?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, bro.
So so now we have proof.
Yeah, it almost feels like, when I first looked at like the atomic bomb and how it got figured out and how somebody was sitting there and figure out like I can pull hydrogen from air and, stuff like this. This is stuff that I start to think like when we say, is there aliens out there? You start to think that some of us have this power to tap into another dimension, another. You're like,
Yeah.
you're looking at me like, yeah.
So the Bimanas, have you heard of the Bimanas?
No.
So Sanskrit, it's written in Sanskrit back
Okay.
in India.
Yeah.
They talk about these flying machines
Yeah.
that had war. And so we've had evidence of big explosions and flying machines and all of this technology for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So do we tap into another dimension or do we tap into the collective unconscious? Whatever it is that we tap into, we are definitely tapping into. And
Yeah.
we could prove this because if we look at patterns, when somebody goes and patterns something, you'll notice that very similar patterns start popping up around the same time in other places.
Yeah.
So we know that when something comes into the awareness of people, into the popular consciousness,
Yeah.
then other people start having the same ideas.
Yeah.
So then there's definitely something that is communal
Yeah.
to our mind.
Yeah.
Again, it comes down to where is God?
Yeah.
So if God is within us, then He's within us all. So there is nothing else other than God. So the
Yeah.
only thing we could prove to be real is consciousness.
Yeah.
So before there was chemistry, there was consciousness. Chemistry and everything else came out from consciousness. And so because there is this, then there must be this ultimate reservoir of everyone's consciousness.
Yeah.
Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious or the collective consciousness.
Yeah.
And through methods of going into theta, for example,
Yeah.
you're able to suspend the self and start tapping into these.
The sixth sense or
Sure.
your,
Sure.
I do believe it, and Napoleon Hill calls it like the power of the mastermind, right? The
Yeah.
power of being able to get with a group of people and through your thoughts and through the energy be able to create something.
Yeah, so there's a very interesting chapter 12 on the subconscious on Think and Grow Rich. He has a practice where he goes into a room and pretends
Yes.
to be talking to,
Us round table of people.
it was Lincoln
Yep.
and Washington
Yep.
and so on. And at
Yep.
some point, one gets up, talks to the
Yep.
other, he thinks it's going crazy.
Yep.
That's the collective subconscious.
Yeah.
He's tapping in
Yeah.
to exactly what Lincoln would have said, even
Yeah.
though it's not Lincoln.
Yeah.
Because the essence of everything we know
Yeah.
is there.
Yes.
And so through practices like meditation and astral projection and
Yeah.
all kinds of metaphysical things,
Yeah.
understanding who we are,
Yeah.
then we're able to have these downloads, they're calling them now.
Yeah.
So whether we read about people in the Bible talking to angels, or we read about people talking to aliens, or we read about psychologists tapping into the collective unconscious, they're likely all talking about the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we're powerful beyond what we know, and most people will never, ever tap into that.
The trick of life is understanding what we are, who we are, and why we are.
Yeah.
And when you understand that, then you've mastered existence.
Yeah. And there is something there, man. I'm telling you, there is something definitely there as I do my breath work, as I do this stuff. A lot of stuff I've manifested it, but it would have never happened if there wasn't a thought there.
Yeah. We are a manifestation of God that is delusional by our ego. And we think that we are individuals because we have this ego. But if we get rid of that, or at least subdue it for the moment, all that's left is the godly essence.
Yeah.
And if we are able to make that grow and get in line with that, then we're able to start to perceive the rhythm of life, the cause and effect, the chaos from where it all comes.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's not really manifesting, it's just being in the flow.
Yeah.
It's simply understanding that what you see out here is a mirror of what you have in here.
Yeah.
So when you get this straight, then what's happening out here is going to straighten out.
Yeah. Yeah, I do believe that your world starts within,
Of course.
and then it'll resonate out. But there's definitely something about us being social beings, because you see these people that are put into like solitaire and they turn into, like, right now I was seeing an interview how they were talking about how Chapo is right now in solitaire, and they were talking about that he is doing bad right now, because when you take away the social aspect to us humans,
Yeah.
we start to die off.
Yeah. Well, again, I believe that we are all connected.
Yeah, we're
We are
connected in a way.
all of the same essence.
Yeah.
And so we're social because we literally are the same being.
Yeah.
We just literally think we're individuals because we have this ego.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm sure that AI is gonna educate us a little bit more on these subjects, and we're going to be able to tap into this. And it's a lot of the time, all these founders and people that were tapping into this before the technology existed we're gonna look back and say those people were geniuses, man.
The fact that we are creating things like AI demonstrates our need to tap into some other intelligence.
Yeah.
So AI, it's not a new form of intelligence.
Yeah.
It's simply a new way of accessing what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So there is always something that keeps drawing us out and then in.
Yeah.
And it's that reaching out and looking in and putting out action that creates the rhythm of life.
There was a book that really opened my mind on this. It's a book called Scary Smart, and it's by Mo Wartz.
Okay.
It's a really good book, but one of the things that opened my eyes, and the thing that he said, is that as humans, we are very arrogant, because we think we're the most intelligent right now, right? We're very arrogant in that sense, but AI is going to become more intelligent to us, like compared to us is going to be like what we're compared to a fly right now.
Yeah.
Like our intelligence to a
We
fly.
are the ancients.
Yeah.
In the future, they're going to look back and think we're silly.
Yeah.
We literally are the ancients. And
Yeah.
we think we're at the peak of it all,
Yeah.
but sadly, no.
Yeah, the flaw and this is something that really put things in perspective to me and really made me understand that I need to double down on technology. And when you asked me questions like earlier, like how are you creating systems? It's through the use of technology and through machine, because I've learned, and through reading Mo Ward's book, I realized that the limitation that the human has is our limitation to our storage capacity.
Yeah.
We only have so much storage, man. That's why right now you're seeing people at crazy levels of anxiety, because we're reaching that capacity of what we can consume and we can hold on to.
Yeah.
Our long-term memories are going away. That's getting worse because we're just inundated in information.
Yeah.
And so this is where AI can take us to that next level, is by understanding that our limitation as humans is the capacity that we have to hold on to information. And with the use of AI, that will be taken to a whole nother level. The other thing that is very unique to a human is that we're emotional beings. So a lot of our decisions are made based on, do I like this person? How does this person make me feel? And I think this is a big thing when you ask me about building a business and stuff like that. I think you need to really understand those fundamentals to understand how to sell, because selling is about connecting emotionally with people, because people make decisions emotionally.
Yeah, emotions are the human factor.
Yes.
And it literally is what makes us human. And so in order to maintain that humanity is that we need to have emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times people think that it's the shutting off of emotions, especially man.
Yeah.
But it really isn't the shutting off of emotions. It's the mastering of those emotions.
Yeah.
Emotions are literally the power to the manifestation. So first comes the thought.
Yeah.
Then comes the affirmation. Then comes the owning of that affirmation. And when you own it, the emotion comes, and that emotion is going to drive it.
Yeah, the emotion with the together with action. I think, I mean, that's what makes everything happen. But there's something there, man, that I don't know what it is, but that you tap into it. I don't know how often you do it. I used to tell people when I was young, I used to think that I can control the lights with my eyes, like the stoplights.
Yeah.
And still to this day, I
Yeah.
have that same thought about things, that I'm like, I'm gonna focus on it. This is why I'm very, and you and I kind of touch base on magic, not the like we went over the different types of magic, but to me, these are things because as you look, it's things that we don't think that are possible that the human can do, but can be done.
Yeah. It's just getting into the rhythm of life. I was sitting late night at the office on the fourth floor, like we mentioned, and I look out my window and I could see the plaza. And at the other side of the plaza, I see a squad car pass by. And then there was some group of girls going by. They caught my attention. The squad car passed by again. It caught my attention again. And I'm sitting there in this daydream, right? And in my daydream, I start to imagine the police car turn on the side light and flash it on. Holy shit, the car turned on the light. The car turned on the light as I was thinking that, bro. It made me jump off the window and said, oh shit, did I do that? I mean, there is something to getting into the rhythm of life to where synchronicities just become a part of everyday life.
Yeah.
And there is something to meditation that triggers this.
Yeah.
So laying there and being able to go into theta and being able to let go of self, it's going to make synchronicities perhaps not appear, but be more apparent.
Yeah.
And it is the coolest thing in the world to be able to see this happening and see that you're part of it.
Yeah.
It's like, did I cause that? Probably, and does it matter? Maybe not, but what matters is my quality of life.
Yeah.
And if my quality of life is higher because I think that I could make the lights change, then God damn it, I could make the lights change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's really what it's about when you see, there's a show David Blaine does, like, do not try this at home. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but it's amazing if you guys check it out. But he goes around the world to these people that do magic, right? But really what it is people that have a deeper will. You're talking about, like, and I'm going to say some of this stuff, like my kids had to leave the actual room because it was so, but eating glass.
Yeah.
Guys that would jump on glass. Guys that would turn themselves on fire and jump off buildings. Guys that in the ice would jump off of mountains and land in the ice off of stories that would kill anybody on an impact. And when he interviews, it's like, why or what is the difference is the thinking, right? And the mentality that you can do it, that gets you through it. A woman that, that went into a volcano, like just crazy shit.
Wow.
And it's all mind over matter. That's what the magic is.
I mean, you've seen the Sufis, right? When they go into their spinning trance and they start putting needles through their...
Oh, yeah.
I mean...
Yeah.
Where's
there was the one that really tripped my kids out, and if you guys go check it out, it's the episode in India, and there's a guy that puts a sword. Okay, they're doing all the putting needles through their mouth, they're putting needles through their arm. This guy, I shit you not, guys, he puts a needle and it's thick, it's like a sword, a thin sword, and he puts it here and he goes and he goes straight down and it comes out of the back of his neck.
And then they take it off and there's no blood.
And there's no blood. There's no mark.
Yeah. So what is that? What's going on? So they talk about, I think it's in the book of Judas or Thomas or one of the apocryphal gospels. They talk about the ability to walk through walls.
Yes.
And whatever that is probably the same thing that is.
Yeah.
And that's probably the suspension of being associated to your physical body.
Yeah.
When you lose that association, then whatever happens to the body is in a different...
There was one guy just breaking bottles, bro. He got a big, the Jack Daniels bottle, the thick one, the square one.
Yeah.
And he broke it on his head, bro. And this kid literally, his whole thing is he'll create a pile of glass. I mean, just you cut anything, bro, you're dead.
Yeah.
And this guy jumps like front, back, steps, falls into it. I mean, everything.
So what do you think the practical use of doing all that stuff is?
When he investigates, it's to show that the human body has the resilience to go through the most terrible things and still make it out.
Yeah.
You know, but what is the practical use of this stuff? I think is people who, I don't know, want to show individualism or just show that they're different. Or, you know, a lot of them were taken under the wing they started off maybe in magic and then they went off to do this kind of stuff. I mean, what makes a person turn themselves on fire? There was this man that he turns this, like, I don't even know what the piece is, but he throws it with kerosene and with gas. He turns it on, puts it on his head, and it's just like hanging out and his head's on fire.
Wow.
And then he takes it off and he still got all his hair, everything, nothing burnt.
Yeah. I think the practical use of that would be the realization of what we are.
Yeah.
You know, and when people realize that what we are isn't necessarily tied into the body,
Yeah.
then all these superhuman-like abilities start to come about.
Yeah.
You know, the being able to be under pressure in jiu-jitsu
Yeah.
and translate that into everyday life is the same thing these guys are doing.
Yeah.
You know, there's no actual practical use to eating glass, but if you eat glass,
Yeah.
you'll have a much more resilience and bigger resilience in life, because your understanding is that you're not attached to this body.
And there's also like technique into some of this stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So it's how
Glass
you do
is
it,
just
how you
sand.
fall. Yeah, you glass, the way you chew it, the way you know.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to see it. I'm very intrigued. I've always loved like magic tricks and stuff like that.
The ones that really get my attention are like the Buddhist monks that are able to raise their temperature through meditation.
Yeah.
Have you seen those where
Yeah.
they put wet towels on them?
Yeah.
You know, I think that's more intriguing because a lot of the stuff we mentioned earlier is much more about the technique.
Yeah.
But this other stuff, it's complete dominance of the human body.
Yeah.
You know, so
It's similar like to what Wim Hof does
Yeah.
when they injected him with a pathogen that would
oh wow, I didn't hear that.
You didn't hear that? It was done at MIT, where Wim Hof, which is the Iceman. If you guys don't know about him, look him up. He's fascinating. But just, his breath work.
Yeah.
Through his breath work, and he's got a very interesting story because the way he started doing this was because his wife committed suicide. She threw herself off of a building, and he was left with the kids. So he had to find out a way to, get through this stuff, and he found it through cold and breathing. The guy went on to climb Mount Everest in his underwear, hold a record of holding your breath underwater in ice water. And so he got to the point where they were starting to study him and study the effects of the breathing. And they did a study on him at, I think it was MIT, where they injected him with a pathogen that would have easily got somebody really, really sick. And he was able to overcome it through the breathing, and it did nothing to him.
Yeah.
And so it's something similar to like you're saying, it's
Yeah.
just like mind over matter, breathing through this stuff. And I believe wherever your mind goes, you're going to get sick if you think about this and stuff like that. So I think it's really important that your mind stays there. And as long as you're fighting, you're going to stay in it. You've seen this with cancer survivors. You've seen this and why does some people die? Why do some people die and some people live? I think it's through will and the want to live and to be here. And, the body has its way to repair itself and to get through some of the stuff. But it's amazing, some of the stuff that's out there, man. It's
And it goes to show us, again, where is God or where is the mind? That proves to us that it's not in the brain, that it's something outside of us. So there was a guy that I believe he tried to unalive himself and blew out the center portion of his brain, and all he had was the outer rim.
Wow.
He recovered and became a mathematician and all kinds of acknowledgments for his genius. So obviously, you don't need the brain.
Yeah.
You know, it's just what tunes us in.
Yeah.
And so when we're able to get that power from outside of us,
Yeah.
like these people, then our body, what happens to the body is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing stories. I know you've gone through a lot of life journey. You've put yourself through challenges. You're part of the Masonry. Can you give us a little bit of insight on that and tell us a little bit about your new project?
Yeah, so Masonry, probably the biggest part of my life at this point. I think that's what I've been the longest.
Yeah.
I've been a Mason now for 22 years. And it's, tell me?
I was going to ask you, what started you on that path? Was it what you told me, just to try to better yourself and find yourself?
Yeah, you want to hear a really weird, interesting story? All right, so I've always been into, you know, esotericism, occult, other alternate religions, and so on. And in studying that, the name of Masonry always came up. But at the same time, I was in seminary and very much a good Christian boy.
Yeah.
So I had a fear that if I was to do Masonry, I would upset God or lose my God or something, you know. So for many years, that's what held me back.
Yeah.
In 2000, I got the opportunity to be living in San Diego, and a lot of the guys that lived around me were Masons. And one just, it almost seems like it was like a scene for me to live. You know, a guy was an occultist, the other one was Christian, Muslim, you had a Jew, and this sounds like a joke, but they really were good buddies. And to me, I came from a background where I was like, people in the church are fighting against each other. You know, Christians are fighting Christians. And over here I see completely opposite religions getting along great.
Yeah.
So there must be something to this Masonry stuff.
Yeah.
So I come back to El Paso after experiencing that with a resolution that I'm doing this. I'm getting in. When I come back, I start working at the mall. And I see across the hall, there was a guy selling dog tags. There's an old man, all black, comes up to him, talks to him, walks away. A few minutes later, I see in the screen the dog tag he had just ordered. It was a compass and square. I was like, oh, the old man is a Mason. So as soon as he comes back, I'm like, I gotta talk to you. I was like, I want to be a Mason and this and that. And tells me a little bit about it. He says, but you know, you're supposed to join the lodge of your neighborhood. I'm a West Sider at the time. He's like, there's a lodge down the street here in Sunland Park.
Yeah.
No. I want to join your lodge. And I was convinced that this is where I had to be. So I filled out the paperwork. Time went on. I kept calling, and I would check in with him and tell, hey, is everything okay? Because it took a long time for them to call me back. And he would tell me, yeah, everything's okay. Did you lie in your application? I would say, no. That stayed that way. No, don't worry, you're okay. Eventually the day came, I show up to my initiation, there's cars from all over the nation, and I'm like, I guess that's just the way it is, you know? I go through the whole ordeal, and I'm walking down after the initiation to a cafeteria. And at the bottom of the stairs, there's a brother who sees me coming down, looks up and says, hey, how's your father? I said, I don't know. I haven't seen him in 15 years. The whole lodge stayed quiet. Then they all start laughing, and they're like, oh, we thought you were lying in your application, because the application says, do you have any family members that are Masons?
Oh.
And I put, no, I hadn't seen my dad since I was 5. And they're like, well, look, me and that guy and that guy and that guy, we were initiated by your dad in this lodge.
Wow.
How does that happen? I'm supposed to join my neighborhood lodge.
Yeah.
I joined the lodge in Juarez. You know? Something attracted me to that. Everybody that's a Mason says this. There's something about it that is beyond normal.
Yeah.
So how I got into it was just like that. There was that draw.
Yeah.
What it did for me is make me a better man and give me much better reasoning tools. And I've been able to grow in it and by it. Luckily, the latest and greatest adventure is Grotto. We just opened on March 8th, Satara Grotto. Absolutely love the name. The name is Persian. It means star in the mountain.
Nice.
And the grotto is kind of like an offshoot of what Shriners. I know you mentioned your grandfather was a Shriner.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're doing. The grotto just opened up, and
So the Shriners would be like a grotto.
they're
It's an offshoot.
they both do kind of exactly the same thing, but they're
Yeah.
two different groups.
Yeah.
But they basically the exact same thing. And thank God we've been very lucky that within the first week we were able to go to Dale La Mano, the crisis center,
Yeah.
and make some clothing donations there and work with them. So it is an organization that it hitting the floor running right off the bat. We're
Nice.
already involved in the community, and we're causing an impact.
Nice, man.
Very, very
Congratulations
proud.
on
Thank
that. What made you want to say, I want to do my own grotto?
Well, first of all, this isn't mine. It took a group of us to do it.
Okay.
But I think the impulse was from there not being one here for the last couple hundred years. So there's been an attempt to
Yeah.
open one various times through history.
Yeah.
And for one reason or another, it hasn't gone through. So thank God the time was right. Everything, the brothers lined up, everything worked out, and we're off and running, and we're in the community now.
That's nice, man. I do see you doing things with the community. I see you as a person who really loves El Paso and loves our community.
I do.
I mean, just you dig for so much history, and to explain to people to really know who they are.
Yeah.
I know at one time I had Simeon here, and he says, I draw because it's my way of preserving the culture, right?
Yeah.
You do it by educating people on, telling these stories of time, right? And I think it's very fascinating. They're very interesting. If you guys haven't checked out Caleb's stuff, go check him out on Instagram, Facebook. His page is called Elevate El Paso. You can also go follow his personal page, Caleb Lara. Super interesting stuff. I'm always intrigued when I look at the videos. You always come up with some really, really interesting stuff. What is your latest project that you're like on right now when it comes to like the research, and what's the thing that right now is really intriguing you?
There's a couple of them. There is a train station. I'm not going to name it because everybody knows it and sees it, but there's a popular train station we're doing a video on. There's a documentary that we're finishing for the artist Hal Marcus.
Yeah.
And we're probably going to start working out in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And connecting the trust buildings that are in Phoenix with the ones here.
Oh, nice.
So there's two in particular that are replicas of our Camino Real and our OT Tower Bassett, but they're just a little smaller.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've taken pictures of it myself.
Oh, yeah.
Look very similar to the buildings here in El Paso. Do you know if the Trost family still has family that lives here in the area?
They don't live here. They're in New Mexico. And yes, I believe it's the great-great-granddaughter.
Are they still in the building business? Were they architects?
No, but they're very much involved in the legacy. And it's interesting that you say that I tell
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
This is very important to me. I need people to understand that I'm not a historian.
Yeah.
I'm a storyteller.
Yeah.
And people like the Trust family are
Yeah.
part of the reason why I say this, because there is families out there that are very much invested in preserving what they consider history.
Yeah.
So history is a narrative,
Yeah.
not necessarily the truth.
Yeah.
I'm a storyteller. I'm going to tell you the stories of our city.
Yeah.
And there might not fit history sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, so one of the latest and greatest debacles is that the family is pretty upset of the fact that I give credit to Henry C. Trost and not Trost and Trost.
Oh, okay. See.
So now they've been kind.
Why was it Trost and Trost? Was there multiple family members?
Oh yeah, it's three brothers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So when you say Henry, you're talking about one.
One. Well, he was the man.
He was the main. Yeah. Yeah.
His brother was actually a Mason too, and
Oh,
his
wow.
brother hand drew the drawings to the Scottish Rite.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the greatest, and out of respect, that's what we're doing now. So now when we do videos, instead of saying Henry C. Trost, we say this was designed by the Trost and Trost firm.
Yeah. One last question that I had that I know that we didn't touch base on is probably the most popular question that I ask you as well is any updates or any new findings that you have on Pancho Villa? I know that there's been a lot of stories, and I know that in Parral they have like this festival that there's like this big old thing that they reenact stuff. And
The Ride Out. Have you seen the Ride Out?
no, can you tell us about the ride out?
They get on their horses and ride from Parral to Juarez. And I mean, you're talking about probably not hundreds anymore, but at least dozens of people. And it's a 2-3 day journey. Have you heard that song, El Burrito Sabanero?
No.
It's a kind of like a traditional Mexican song.
Yeah.
Well, they have a donkey. Then the donkey's job is to carry the tequila. And so the whole way, there's mariachis, they're singing, you're riding horses, you're taking shots. It's an experience. It's an
Wow.
experience.
And they do that during the festival?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
The
And
craze-
what other things happen there at the festival?
I mean, the craze.
I know there's like a big statue, right?
Yeah, right in the heart of Parral. It's Pancho Villa with his horse and so on. Craziest part about Parral is that there's more Parral people outside of Parral than there is in Parral.
Yeah.
You know, so you get all these myths of the town, but then you show up to the town and you're like, oh, it's 3 streets. It's like-
Yeah. The interesting story that I heard that you talked about, which was an add-on to the Pancho Villa, was the real reason why he invaded the U.S. through New Mexico. Can you share with us a little bit of that story?
Yeah, so there was the Raval family who are actually still around,
Yeah.
and also keeping history. They had a shop. The Raval brothers had a shop in Deming,
Yeah.
and they sold some ammunition to Pancho Villa, which some of it ended up being faulty. So Pancho Villa, being super grudgeful, originally the debate was whether to invade here in El Paso or where to invade, and he decided to do Deming so that he could get back to Raval. Ironically, Sam Raval had a dentist appointment the day that he did the raid. So while Pancho Villa was out there doing the raid, Sam Raval was in El Paso doing his teeth. They did end up burning half of his store down. They did cause a ruckus out there, but that's the reason why he decided to go for Deming. And to this day, it's been the only time the U.S. has ever been invaded.
Yeah. I was. Do you know what the outcome? Like they went into this town, they invaded. They were just burning things and
They were-
killing people. And,
Yeah, basically. They're
And-
going to the shops. They took the Raval brothers. I think they smacked them around a few times, and they burned the store. They did this too. But the army fought back, and they actually took a bunch of the revolutionary fighters captive.
Oh, okay.
And so there's pictures of the soldiers with all the revolutionaries there.
And then they just went back over, or
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it was. So
So it didn't really last that long.
No, you're talking about no more than a couple of hours.
So they just
But
came in,
they did.
wreaked havoc, and then
Yeah, they burned the main street of Deming. Half of those buildings were burned down.
yeah. Any other Pancho Villa stories that you could
Did I tell you the gold bar that they found? A girl's family found the gold bar under their bathroom.
No.
Ah, okay. So there's a story. There's a stash house in downtown El Paso.
Yeah.
Known as the Pancho Villa Stash House.
Yeah.
There's another in Juarez. The girl wrote to me. I don't know if this is true. She wrote saying that the the two houses connected in a tunnel underneath, and that in her bathroom they found the tunnel and the gold bar within in that tunnel.
Wow.
So apparently there was some stashing going on in these tunnels.
Wow. Yeah. Wherever you are, send a picture. Let us see it, man.
Yeah.
We'll try to post some pictures with all the descriptions that you today's podcast, because I think it's really, really interesting, and we can go down a rabbit hole on each one of these topics.
You know, the cool one too is those tunnels at the Turtle House.
Yeah.
Did we talk about the secret society that was there last time?
No.
Bruh, there was a secret society of thieves.
Yeah.
So a bunch of thieves that had like all these special knocks and passwords to be able to get into what is now the basement to the Turtle House, the tunnels, the famous tunnels.
Yeah.
But that's where they were stashing all the stuff they were stealing all over Sunset.
Yeah.
And they ended up getting busted and so on. But yeah, that's one of the cool stories.
And this ring of thieves, when was this?
This was also 20s.
1920s.
Yeah.
And so they're stealing stuff from people around.
All the houses around Sunset.
Yeah. Wow.
And they found, so there was a boiler there, and there was like a series of taps you needed to do in the boiler, and then give a password to be allowed in.
Yeah.
And that's how they ended up getting busted, I believe. But one of the cops went in there and did that.
Wow. And so how many were in this ring or what?
Not quite sure.
Yeah.
I do believe it was 6 that got arrested, but I'm not quite sure how many were there.
Wow. And have you been there to the Turtle House?
I've been there. I haven't been inside. No.
Ah.
But I've been. You could see the entrance to the tunnel off the side. So the apartments have like a little alley on the side of it.
Yeah.
And in those entrances is where it's gated off, and the entrance is right there.
Oh, nice. If you get access to any of this stuff, man, invite us. We would love to go out there and shoot some content. I think it'll be really interesting, and it'll be really interesting videos, Caleb. But man, we've been talking for about 2 hours now.
Already? Wow.
It's probably been more, probably like 2.5.
Oh my God.
But dude, this has been super interesting.
I really
love
appreciate it.
having a conversation with you about this. I know you're one of the guests that we're probably going to have on 3 times, man, 4
Awesome.
times, as many
Love
times
it.
as we can, because there's always so much to cover and so many interesting topics. There's a lot of history in our city, man. Our city is full of life, culture, stories, really interesting stories that we didn't even know about. I hope we educated you guys a little bit today on some of the history of the KKK, some haunted stories, because I know you guys love that stuff. So just overall, man, Caleb, I appreciate you coming onto the podcast, sharing your stories with us, man. They're very interesting. I love your content. Keep doing what you're doing, brother.
I appreciate you. I appreciate the space, the platform. I appreciate what you're doing. I mean, you are one of those guys that we should be looking up to. I've seen you hustle.
Yeah, thanks,
you
man.
Don't stop, bro. And
Thank you, brother.
It's showing. So keep it up. I appreciate
Thanks. And we'll see you guys on the next one. I appreciate you guys tuning in, man. See you guys.